Hello again, everyone. Please be seated. Okay, everyone. Move to item one. Item one, we have questions from members of the public. We have one valid question which has been received from a member of the public to be asked at this meeting. The questioner who is in attendance will have the opportunity to ask a supplementary question and will have up to 1 minute. The person responding has 5 minutes to respond to the question and 2 minutes to reply to the supplementary question. Any supplementary question must arise directly out of a substantive question or the reply. So question one from Ms. Morell. Is Ms. Morell in attendance? Okay, would you like to ask your question or take it as read? If you press the button on the right hand side. That's it.
Will the council, on behalf of North Tyneside residents and scheme members, approach Tyne and Wear Pension Fund and South Tyneside Council to ask them to undertake a review of the current transparency arrangements and fully consider the introduction of live streaming of the Pension Fund committee meetings and allow questions from the public? As a resident of North Tyneside and on behalf of the campaigning group Divest Tyne and Wear, I'm very concerned about the lack of democratic accountability of the Tyne and Wear Pension Fund Committee. Because of the severe climate emergency, which I know North Tyneside Council recognises, our campaign is asking Tyne and Wear Pension Fund to remove investment.
Excuse me, you just have to stick to the question as you sent in.
This is the question. I sent a question which was about 3 minutes long and you shortened it to 1 sentence, and I don't think it's very easy for people to understand unless I give some background.
I think
I'm only going to speak for 2 minutes.
I think the question was, because you only have 2 questions, you have an initial question and then a supplementary question. It's just the rules of debate. If there's any further questions, I'm sure the mayor's quite happy for you to write the question and we can ensure that you get a written response to any further questions. But if you'd just like to deal with this one as you presented it.
But I feel that the background will help the councillors understand why I'm asking for this.
Well, I'm sure the response, we've had the question for a while, so I'm sure the response will take into account what you're asking here. Then if you have any further ones, make sure you get a written response. Have further questions. Just Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. Can I move a motion without notice to suspend the standing order so we can hear the resident's full question?
Okay, has that been moved? Do you have a seconder to move that? Okay, Councillor John Johnson seconded it. We're going to have to go to a vote on that now, apparently. So okay, we'll agree that. So you can ask your question. Yeah, but you still have 3 minutes to ask it.
Thank you, Chair. Because of the severe climate emergency, which I know North Tyneside Council recognises, our campaign is asking Tyne and Wear Pension Fund to remove investments in fossil fuel companies, especially those that have plans for new oil and gas exploration, which Paris Agreement recommended should not be drilled. Recent guidance published in February 2024 by Financial Markets Law Committee states local government pension funds must consider their duty to pensioners and future pensioners regarding sustainability and in terms of climate, as well as short-term financial returns, because obviously medium and long-term financial returns, our investments should be removed from fossil fuels. Currently, the public can attend the meetings at South Tyneside Town Hall in person as observers only. They are not allowed to ask questions and the arrangements are inadequate. The fund covers a very wide geographic area from Berwick to Sunderland. If the public can already attend in person, and the principle should be extended to live streaming and thereby give scheme members and the public a much wider opportunity to access these meetings. Public questions and observation online are allowed at joint committee meetings of Border Coast Pension Partnership, which Tyne and Wear Pension Fund invests in, and which the chair of Tyne and Wear Pension Fund attends with the chairs of 10 other local government pension fund committees. The government's audit of the Tyne and Wear Pension Fund found that transparency was worse than other pension funds.
Okay, so you've finished with your question. Okay, can I ask the mayor to respond to the question, please?
Thank you. And I have no doubt that this is really something been bothering you for a long time, because I've had a lot of concerns addressed to me. But I certainly will do exactly what you ask. I can't say when all those things you've highlighted cannot be addressed, but at the end of the day, I will send a letter and I'll send you a copy. All right?
Thank you very much. Is it possible for me to put in a question or attend the meeting in January to actually get an update on what the Tyne and Wear Pension Fund's position is?
I can ask that ask if you can do that, but that's not my
Sure.
my decision. But I can ask if you can do that. Is that okay?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Rolfe. Sorry, question. Okay, everyone, we now move to apologies. I've received apologies from Councillor Bruce Pickard, Joe Kerwin, Julie Cruddas, Matthew Thirlway and Trisha Neary. Any further apologies? Yes, Councillor Bones.
Councillor Dr. Scargill. Thank you.
Okay.
Apologies from Councillor Liz McMullen.
Okay, Councillor Michael. Okay, we now move on to declarations of interest. Can I remind members if they have any registrable and or non-registrable interests in matters appearing on the agenda, the nature of the interests they must verbally declare in respect of any items of business to be discussed at this meeting, the nature of such interests. You are also invited to disclose any dispensation and requirements to declare any interests, either registrable or non-registrable, that you have been granted in respect of any matters appearing on the agenda. Those members should also complete the card which has been circulated and return it to the reciprocal located at the desk of the Democratic Services Officer before you leave today's meeting. Okay. Yes, start at this corner and then we'll work our way along the line. So,
thanks, Chair. I have a registrable interest perspective, Section 1, impact of the government's further budget on the third sector, and I'm a trustee of North Tyneside Carers Centre, so the basement project in Forest Hall. Because of the nature of the conflict, I would be duration of that debate.
Chair, I have the same interest. Motion 1, agenda item 8. I'm a trustee of the basement project at St Bart's. It is a non-registrable interest, and I will.
Thank you. Yes, I declare an interest in the same item, item 8, motion 1. I'm Director and Chief Officer of Justice Prince, which is actually a community interest company, not a registered charity. However, the aims and objectives of the organisation are charitable in purpose, and the organisation is part of the third sector and employs staff. To avoid any confusion, I'm declaring an interest and I will leave the meeting during the debate.
Okay,
Just to go on the same bingo card, it's the same item. I've got non-registrable personal interest as I'm in position of management of a charity. And as same way I'll be withdrawn from the meeting at that point.
Councillor Dahl.
Registrable interest. Trustee. Like in or something.
Okay, go back up. Sorry.
Yeah, just non-registrable interest, I'm a director.
So sure.
I've got a non-registrable interest. My husband's employed by Monkseaton High School.
Okay, Councillor O'Shea.
Yeah, Chair, I've got a non-registrable interest as well. I'm a trustee of a charity and it's in connection with 8 motion 1.
Yes.
I have a registrable interest. I work for homeless charities.
Else? Up on the back row. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, Chair, I've got a registrable interest for motion 1 as I work for a charity in North Shields, a finished statues project, so I'll leave the room. Was in debate.
Okay, Councillor Drummond.
Original interest, my wife works as citizen's advice and I'm on the board. So
Anybody else on this side of the room? No? Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. Item 8, motion 1. I'm a trustee of Pathways for All and I'll be leading the meeting.
That all. And you'll all make sure you fill in the cards before the end of today's meeting. Okay, we now move on to item 4, which is the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting and the council meeting held on the 19th of September 2024. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. The attendance list for the second of those meetings on page 13 is wrong. My name isn't listed. I was at the meeting. My name's shown in the voting, but not.
Council therefore confirm the minutes with that alteration. We now move on to item 5, the independent remuneration panel. We have members of our independent remuneration panel present in the chamber tonight. Can I thank the independent remuneration panel for being here and invite Les Watson to introduce the panel's report.
Thank you, Chair. Evening, everybody. Just briefly to start with, that last year I stood here and promised a short, sharp review of the allowance scheme, and obviously that didn't take place because the panel became inquorate because of illness. In the meantime, the council have been recruiting new members of the panel. We now have 6 with a very wide range of experience and expertise. Some of the members are here behind me. So I think going forward, it's important to recognise that the council is very well served in terms of the skills required for the panel. I'm not going to go into great detail through the report, which I think is very comprehensive. And our thanks go to Alison for the help she's given the panel in preparing the report. But I do think maybe I should just speak very briefly about section 1.2, which has the recommendations. And there are 4. The first of the recommendations is that, and we have to make a recommendation about the overall scheme. And I think what we're saying is that the overall scheme, which covers a whole range of issues, should remain unchanged for the 25-26 year, except for one change. And what we're proposing is that the basic allowance payable to all elected members should increase. And the increase we've worked out which on a basis of that has been agreed before at council, and I'll read this verbatim because it's quite a lengthy sentence. That should be in line with the median pay point of the 24-25 annual pay award for employees working under the National Joint Council for Local Government Services National Agreement Paying Conditions of Service, which is a bit of a mouthful. But that's really saying, and it refers back to discussions some years back, that the council allowances should be linked in some way to kind of peer increases that council staff are receiving. That works out that's been calculated as equal to a 4.11% increase. And again, the detail is in the report, but I just feel as if I should mention two things on behalf of the panel. Allowances haven't increased for some time now, and the gap between what allowances used to be, what they were originally set at, and what they are now is wide and continues to be wider and wider as time goes on. And the wider it gets, the more difficult it gets to address the problem suitably. So that I think, we just need to raise that, and the panel are aware of that. And the other thing, of course, is, and again, it's covered in more detail in the report, there will come a point, or there could well come a point, I should say, where the level of allowances falls so far behind what they used to be and maybe what they should be, comparative to other councils as well, that it might actually deter good people from coming forward to serve on the council. We're not saying that people, almost all people don't join councils and service councils for the financial benefits, but there may come a time when the level falls so low that it begins to affect recruitment. So that's the first recommendation, that the scheme remains the same, but that one increase to the basic allowance takes place. The second recommendation is that there should be no increase to special responsibility allowances, because we're aware that a number of changes have taken place in terms of committees, and that means levels of responsibility have changed, and that is a much bigger issue in terms of looking at that and trying to make some recommendations. So for the moment, we're proposing that there should be no change in that. The third one, that covers the point I made at the very start. It's been quite some time now, given that we didn't do it when we said we were going to do it last year, since the whole scheme, and that covers things like carers allowances and all kinds of other items. There should be, we should still commit to a full review of the members' allowance scheme over a period of time, and that's what the third recommendation is saying. And the fourth one really is to try and set a date for that, just to be realistic. So we're not trying to do things too quickly, but we're giving the new panel, as I've said, that have quite a bit of experience and expertise, the chance to have a good look at the scheme and to really kind of take its time in looking at what recommendations we can make for the scheme for the year 26-27. And also in the report, you'll see that we've given a bit more detail about how we would go about that. And I think what you would hope, what you would see reading that, is that we intend to be quite comprehensive and make sure we consult everybody who should be consulted in terms of what the scheme going forward from 26-27 should look like. So those are the recommendations of the scheme. And the way this works, obviously, is that we make these recommendations. It's a matter for the council to decide whether to accept them or not. And we don't take part in any of that kind of discussion. But if there were any specific questions about the panel report, I'll be happy to try and answer them now. Or if you've got questions, you maybe could raise them with Alison at a later date. And everybody will be getting a chance, if you accept the recommendation about the future review, everybody, we hope, will get a chance to make their comments on what we might propose for 26-27. So that's it, Chair. Thanks very much.
Mr. Watson, thank you for the So you moving the motion, Councillor John?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks again to the panel for their work on this. I know there's been big changes from here. I want to thank Mr. Les Watson, Dr. Rashid Zamuri, Miss Linda Atkinson, Mr. Alan Dick, Mr. Alan Foster, and Mr. Peter Toppin for their diligent work. Chair, but with that being said, I would thank them for the recommendations, but I would move to amend their recommendations, Chair. On point 1, I would amend that we leave it as that the present North Tyneside members allowances scheme should remain unchanged for the year 25-26, thus essentially freezing the council allowances at its current rate for the next year, Chair. then accept all the rest of the recommendations and the timetable and next year, but freeze the allowances this year and accept the recommendations and the timetable for next year. So I move that, Chair.
Do you have a seconder for that?
Second, formally reserve the right to speak.
Are there any questions? I invite members to speak to the motion, speak to the report of the. Councillor Bourne.
Thank you, Chair. We entirely agree with the Deputy Mayor that members' allowances shouldn't increase this year, particularly given the decisions that this council has taken with regards to redundancies. We would also like to put on record that we think that the council should be looking to get rid of some frivolous luxuries like the chauffeur-driven car, which is an issue we've mentioned, meeting in, meeting out. Let's put on record our thanks to the panel for the work they've done, and we look forward to their review. Thank you, Chair.
I don't suppose you wish to use your right to reply here, Councillor Johnson.
No, thank you.
Okay, can we therefore go straight to the vote? On the report, the amended recommendations in the report. On the fact that would you please on the amended recommendation.
Can all members vote now, please? If all members have voted, I will now close the vote.
Okay, everyone, that's 54 votes, none against, therefore that report is carried. It's amended by Councillor Collins. It's again for the members of the remuneration. Now move to item 6, which is the Children and Young People's Plan 24-25. And I ask Councillor Early to move the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This report represents to Council the Children and Young People's Partnership Refreshed Children and Young People Plan for 2024-25 and seeks Council's approval of the plan. The current Children and Young People Plan 2021-25 was published in 2021 and is set to be fully revisited in 2025. The priorities within this refreshed plan build upon the positive work delivered across the partnership in recent years and is based on a detailed understanding of need across the borough, listening to what children and young people tell us is important to them. It describes the current strategic priorities of the partnership, including the continued impact of COVID-19 on children and young people and the services that work with them. This plan supports the delivery of 2 themes within our North Tyneside plan, that we are family-friendly and caring borough. It also delivers on 2 key objectives set out in the joint health and wellbeing strategy equally well: a healthier, fairer future for North Tyneside, that children and young people have the best start in life, where we maximise their capabilities. Our collective vision for children and young people in North Tyneside is making North Tyneside an even greater place for children and young people to thrive, where all, including those who are vulnerable, disadvantaged or disabled, are ready for school, ready for work and life, are cared for and supported. The plan sets out 4 key outcomes that the partnership wants to deliver for children and young people: that they live a safe life, a happy life, a healthy life, and that they are able to achieve in life. These priorities are underpinned by the partnership's shared principles, that we listen to the voices of children and young people, and that we continue to build on our prevention and early health agenda. This plan is underpinned by a robust delivery action plan overseen by our Children and Young People's Partnership Board. This includes performance measures that the authority and the partnership will track to understand the impact we are making. The Children and Young People's Partnership Board reports progress into the North Tyneside Strategic Partnership. I recommend that Council approves the proposed recommendations set out in section 1.2 of this report. Councillor Phillips.
Sorry. Second motion.
Phillips.
Well, Councillor Phillips, your second.
The motion reserve the right to speak, Chair.
Are there any questions? The report. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lillian.
Thank you, Chair. I have just 2 or 3 questions. On achievement in life on page 80, could the cabinet member tell us where will the high quality post-16 progression pathways be provided?
Well, we're looking at apprenticeships. We're looking at post-16 provision in terms of sixth form. You'll probably have seen from the Ambition for Education update that we're considering how we might extend sixth form provision in the North Shields area. So a range of things, including training, increased inclusion in terms of digital skills, and employment and education skills. So a whole range of measures.
Can the cabinet member confirm that displaced pupils from Muxton High School will be accommodated locally?
Chair, I don't believe I should be commenting on that because it's the subject of a motion later on.
Yes. So I would agree. It's obviously that's a question for the future. There's this is on the report as in from today, rather than sort of
Just what it came under a strategic vision within the report, but if so, I can't ask the questions about that.
well, I'm sure that things happening. So, are there any further questions?
Thank you, Chairman. In paragraph 1.5.11, it says that the partnership wishes to achieve, part of what the partnership wishes to achieve, namely it wants children to experience a high-class, inclusive education where they maximise their capabilities. And I absolutely agree with that. Education is hugely important. I find it worrying to read in the report under Growing Up in North Tyneside on page 72, that only 57% of Key Stage 1 pupils reach the expected standards, and at Key Stage 2, only 61% do. That leaves a huge number of pupils who aren't reaching the standards, 43% and 39% respectively. And for pupil premium children, on page 75, the situation is worse. Only 39% reach Key Stage 1, 61% don't. I find that really worrying. Further on in the report, there's the page of priorities and actions, that's page 78. I find the actions are distinctly thin, and I'd like to see a lot more detail. I wonder if the cabinet member can tell us what exactly is being done to improve the situation. Thank you. In absolute terms, my concern is percentage of children not meeting the standards is really worrying.
I think the purpose of the plan is to improve attainment across the borough, and the main themes in this report are backed up in a detailed action plan, which I'm sure we can share with the member, so wishes.
I think that would be helpful, Chairman, because, as I say, the actions are distinctly thin and leave an enormous gap as well.
Chair, yeah, this is the headline report, and the purpose of it's been prepared and written is so that it would be widely read, and it wasn't too lengthy and too technical, so that parents and children and looked after children, etc., could see what our aims and objectives were going forward.
Could I ask a further question, Chairman? Does the cabinet member share my concern that those figures are worrying?
In some regards, we need to improve them, but I mean it's not an excuse, but in quite a lot of the key stages you mentioned, our performance is better than the regional national average. So it's not just a problem in North Tyneside, it's a problem across the country.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Alpine.
Thank you, Chair. As part of the Healthy Life principle, a commitment is made to support the needs of neurodivergent children and young people with specific efforts to the creation of inclusive communities. There are fewer things more disruptive to this group than uncertainty and loss of routine. Given the potential closure of Monk Seton High would disrupt its year 9 students and throw the plans of many more to disarray.
That isn't mentioned in the
Chair, it is directly relevant, though. The report specifically references our children. Sorry, Chair. The report specifically references our children and young people's plan for the coming year. And as Councillor McAlpine has said, there is a specific part of the report which talks about neurodivergent children. Councillor Lilly was also talking about part of the report, asking the Cabinet member a policy question based on a policy that he is pursuing regarding children and young people's education, which directly fits within the children and young people's plan, is perfectly reasonable. There is a motion, but the motion does not allow us to ask questions to the Cabinet member. The Cabinet member is here this evening, and there are pressing questions about the future of our children's education.
They'll be discussed at the time of the motion.
You can't ask a question of a motion. You can ask questions to the Cabinet member regarding the children and young people's plan. No, it's not a different item. This is a question specifically about the children and young people's plan and neurodivergent children. It is only right that the member is allowed to, if the Cabinet member is refusing to answer it because he doesn't have an answer, then that's a different question altogether. But a question on the children and young people's plan has to be put because it's a question of policy.
Councillor Phillips, you indicated you have something to add to this.
I think Councillor Bones is getting a little bit confused. Doesn't obviously know the cabinet rules, which was a little bit worrying for being the leader of the Tory group over there. Education would be more my portfolio, so if there's any questions based around it, he's more than welcome to ask me. He's had months to do that and he's never chosen to do so, but I'm perfectly happy to answer any questions that I can tonight.
Councillor McAlpine's just asked a question.
Chair, point of order. Can we do something about Councillor Bones butting in all the time? It's getting a bit tedious.
Okay, the questions about this report need to come to, I appreciate it offer, but the questions as mover of the report, Councillor Early takes the questions on this report. If there are anything further outside, as I think you were starting to suggest, that if members want to ask something specific as yourself as Cabinet member on education, it would be for outside of this meeting. They're more than happy to answer that. That's my understanding, the question. The point, but on this report, it's Councillor Early that needs to take the questions. But again, it's on the report.
What about your earlier ruling about the decision about whether council can discuss and debate? Yeah, we'll see. Promotion. Asking me to prejudge the outcome of the.
Well, exactly. It's a point now. My decision that we are discussing what's contained in the report as it stands now, not what the outcome of a further future piece of discussion may be later in the meeting. But I think we need to keep it to the report as it stands now. So if there's any questions, that has to be on what as it stands.
Just on a point of order then, Chair, Councillor McAlpine had raised a question specifically regarding the report and neurodivergent children, which is referenced in the report. That's the question that has already been put. So it's not a case of further question. The question has been put, it hasn't been answered.
Well, if that question's been put and it's on that child, but it wasn't on that group of children, then it can be answered. But if it's on a wider specific schools and things like that, because it will cover a multitude of areas, how that process works forward. So not on a specific school or this specific site. So there's a general discussion, it's in the report, so we can answer the question, general point.
We put the question, we got
yeah, if there's a specific question on specific individual children, then ask the question, but not on a specific site, because the sites can be moved whenever. It's about what's in the report.
Okay. There are few things more disruptive to this group than uncertainty and loss of routine. In the event that any school in the borough were to close, and throw the plans of children into disarray. Can I ask what consideration or arrangements would be made to support neurodivergent children and young people throughout that process?
The measures that we would take are set out in the report. If you want some more detailed response on what is a very specific question, provide it in writing.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further questions on the items in the report? And is there any members wishing to speak on the report? Therefore, can I ask that Councillor Early, please right to reply? You want to speak, Councillor Phillips, or?
I suppose all I really want to say about it's a really thorough report, and I'm really pleased with what's been put forward. Some of the questions that have been asked were just completely left field, nothing to do with this actual report, and I'm a bit disappointed that people have used this report to try and shoehorn in something which is not really connected to it and didn't do it in a different way. So I'm quite happy to support this report and answer any questions that were education based at a future time, whether via email or via phone call.
Thank you, Councillor. So Early, do you wish to?
Yeah, I'm disappointed as well that the opposition has sought to hijack the purpose of this report to advance a discussion in relation to a specific school. The report sets out a number of themes which we developed in participation with our children and young people, are addressing their concerns, addressing what they've told us is important to them. It has a number of innovative threads in there, providing support early for children with neurodiverse problems, tackling deteriorating attendance through our attendance strategy, providing a whole range of further support for looked after children and care leavers in terms of supported accommodation, in terms of creating pathways for them to into employment and higher education, and equally the theme of improving inclusivity for our children of SEND, and providing pathways for them into further education and employment are also important. It's a forward-thinking, innovative plan that will do wonders to help the children of North Tyneside and address the concerns that they've made known to us. Yeah.
So Early, therefore, ask that the vote. Then those in favour of the vote.
For all members, please vote now. If all members have voted, I will close the vote.
Okay, that was 52 votes for, none against. That is now carried. Thank you much, everyone. We now move on to item 7, the North Tyneside Council Statements and Licensing Policy. And can I ask who's moving this up? Councillor Karen Clark.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise Council of the final proposals for the 3-yearly review of the North Tyneside Statement of Licensing Policy for Gambling. The authority is required to produce and publish a statement of licensing policy under the Gambling Act 2005 and review the policy every 3 years. The formulation of this policy is a shared responsibility between Cabinet and Council. The last policy took effect on the 31st of January 22. The next policy must be in place by the 31st of January 25. It's a comprehensive document that outlines the final proposals for the revised policy, which forms part of the authority's budget and policy framework. The policy covers the responsibilities of the authority when licensing gambling activities, which includes protecting vulnerable persons from being exploited by gambling. It should be noted, however, that our licensing powers do not extend to online gambling. This is an area that the nationally based Gambling Commission regulates. Nevertheless, online gambling is a matter we take seriously, in particular the associated addiction problems it creates. There have only been minor amendments to the policy due to a wider review of the Gambling Act 2005, which is expected to conclude in 2025. The Gambling Commission have advised that local policy should be refreshed in line with the statutory timescale, so the revised policy is in place for January 25. We do, however, anticipate undertaking a further review in 2025 when the revised guidance is released. As in previous reviews, there is also a requirement to consider the current no casino resolution. The policy was subject to a 6-week consultation exercise, which included all licence holders, the police, residents, local businesses, as well as all councillors and local MPs. In total, 16 responses were received. A summary of the responses where views were shared are attached at Appendix 2 to this report. All responses were in support of the policy and no responses were received against retaining the no casino resolution. I recommend Council to approve option 1 contained within section 1.6 of this report and approve the draft revised policy statement attached to the report and pass a resolution concerning casino premises licences. Thank you.
Councillor Clark, do you have a seconder for this?
Second reserve right to speak, Chair.
Okay. Okay, are there any questions on this report? No? Any member that wish to speak moving forward? Looks like, would you like to, is your right to speak now, Councillor Johnson? Okay. Would you like to sum up the debate? No, so we'll go straight to the vote then. Okay, can we open the vote, please?
If all members have voted, we close the vote.
That's 52 votes for. Not and none against, so that's beautiful. So we are now moving to motions. The next, we have 6 valid motions have been received and as detailed in the agenda. As there are members of the public in attendance. So, well, hang on, everyone, but change, like, if you wait, can we get them back in, please? Take the names. Okay, everyone, I think now that everyone's back, everyone is a bit quick off the mark there. We have 6 valid motions which were received and on the agenda tonight. As there are members of the public in attendance for probably for 2 of the particular motions, I have agreed to change the order in which the motions are to be heard. We will therefore hear and debate the motions in relation to Monk Seaton High School first. We will then hear and debate the motion in relation to protecting our fishing heritage in colour codes. We will then proceed to hear and debate the motions as they are ordered on the agenda. Please note details of the legal and financial implications of each of the motions have been circulated to all members prior to the meeting. I would like to remind members that the electronic voting system will be used. Okay, so we now move to what is motion 4. Sorry. Sorry, I turning 2 pages at once. We now move to what is motion 5 on the original agenda. And can I invite Councillor Lilly to move the motion, please?
Thank you, Chair. A decision to close Monk Seaton High School will have a detrimental effect on its pupils, the local community and neighbouring schools. Numerous questions remain unanswered, especially those with regard to the future education provision for existing and potential pupils of the school. On the closure of Monk Seaton High School, up to 500 pupils will be displaced. Where will they be educated? Obviously, parents will be looking at neighbouring schools, but will these schools be able to accommodate all Monk Seton High School pupils? Schools publish their planned admission numbers. What is the difference between these plans and full operating capacity, if any? If schools are asked to increase their admission numbers, what will the implications be for their budgets? By increasing schools' admissions with the accompanying increase in class and teaching group numbers, there is a significant risk to the quality of education offered. If these pupils cannot be placed in local schools, where will they go? They will have to travel further afield with associated travel costs. Who will pick up this bill? The proposed closure will also have an effect on the pupils socially. Local schools within the community are breeding grounds for the formation of strong friendship groups which develop throughout pupils' school careers and are taken on into future lives. Displacing Monk Seton High School pupils will affect them socially, as friendship groups will be split up and sent to different schools, some within and some outside the local community. They will have to form new relationships in schools which will not be reflected in the community, making life more difficult for them in the out-of-school environment, which could possibly disrupt community cohesion. Whitley Bay High School is the only school offering like-for-like provision locally, but obviously it will be unable to cater for all displaced pupils. As a result, many pupils in the Monk Seton High School catchment area will have to change school at the end of year 8 and again at the end of year 11. There is concern about parents that this decision will destabilise the three-tier system in Whitley Bay. We need to understand what effect this closure will have on the three-tier system and on the future of Monk Seton Middle School. We also need to know, in light of this closure, what the plan is for sixth form education in North Tyneside. It begs the question as to how Monk Seton High School was allowed to run up such a deficit. How long has the school been in deficit, and what mitigations were put in place to improve the position? By allowing such a deficit to occur, it would appear that someone was asleep at the wheel. It is also highly likely that the deficit will increase upon closure and the debt will eventually land on the council's books. There will also be an impact upon the wider community. No young family will want to live in an area they see as bereft of an educational structure. This at a time when 3,000 houses are being built between Monk Seton and Merton, with a similar number in Killingworth. The local plan includes building a new school in Killingworth. Why? When a perfectly good facility is available in Monk Seton. The Mayor and Cabinet need to halt this closure, commit to the three-tier system in Whitley Bay, and launch an inquiry into how the finances of Monk Seton High School got into such a parlous state. Any further decision on the future of Monk Seton High School should be debated in this chamber. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lilly. Councillor Bowens, are you seconding this motion? So, Councillor McAlpin.
Thank you, Chair. I'm seconding this motion tonight to bring an end to weeks of worrying and to lift the cloud of uncertainty from residents who are or are planning to send their kids to schools at the coast. Over the last 2 months, I've been inundated with inquiries on what the consequences will be if this closure goes ahead. Parents with kids at Monk Seton face the prospect of a rushed readmission process. Everyone else has no idea where the chips will land in terms of numbers their local school can accommodate or what their future catchment looks like. But it's not just about numbers, so I'd like to share some of the personal stories I've had from residents. There's the families that lived in North Whitley Bay who were originally refused a place for their daughter at Whitley High on the grounds it was full, subsequently accepting one at Monk Seton. Now they're being told to reapply for a place they've already been told isn't there, or face travelling miles across North Tyneside to another school. There's the family of 2 boys, one of who's about to graduate from Monk Seton. He's had a fantastic experience there, and his little brother was looking forward to the same rich curriculum and going to school close to home. He's anxious because his picture of what his high school life looked like has been shattered. There's a boy at middle school who's really nervous about being separated from his pals when they move to high school, and his mum can't give him that assurance because she doesn't know what the catchment area will be or how many places there are. There are the many residents who love our reclaimed 3-tier system, many of whom moved to the coast for that very reason, and now they perceive it as something that's under threat, something that could be removed with a brief consultation and their kids' prospects chucked up in the air. And most worrying of all, there are dozens and dozens of kids at Monks Eaton who will have to wait until January to find out where they'll be next year. The cohort we're discussing have already been hugely affected by the disruption during COVID-19. Studies have shown that children's anxiety has significantly risen since that time. I truly believe that this upheaval will and is impacting on the mental health of families in the area, which puts added pressure on school resources and the mental health provision for the authority. Like many other councillors, I've done my best to disseminate the information I've been provided and try and assuage residents' concerns. But at this point, I see no other alternative but to halt this process, and I know many other people will come to the same conclusion.
Finish. Can I now ask any members who wish to speak on the motion, please? Councillor Bartu.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just start by thanking those student supporters, parents who stood outside in the freezing cold, waving their flags and showing their support, and many of whom have taken the time to come this evening. I think they're a credit to the borough. I want to offer my complete support for this motion, which calls for an end to the proposed closure of Monks Eaton High. Strength of feeling amongst our residents is unmistakable. Demonstration outside this chamber and the flood of emails from concerned parents we have all received reminds us of the responsibility we hold to represent their voices. Now, I know I'm not alone when I get a shiver down my spine when I hear those most terrifying words, the council are consulting. We all know what this often means, a predetermined decision dressed up with a survey that magically conforms to what has already been planned. Let's be clear, our residents are not falling for that, and neither should we. This decision is not just logistical, it's deeply personal. Directly impacts the education of our children, the stability of our neighbouring schools, the structure of education in North Tyneside for years to come. Such significant changes demand transparency, accountability, and above all, that we listen to the people we represent. While the ultimate decision lies with the Mayor and Cabinet, supporting this motion today would send a clear and unequivocal message. The elected representatives in this chamber have listened to the people they represent and opposed this closure. It would show that we stand with our communities and that we are committed to protecting the future of Monks Eaton High School. Let's act decisively to uphold the trust our residents have placed in us, and I urge all members to support this motion to ensure that their voices are not just heard, but acted upon.
So Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to support this motion for the reasons which have already been outlined by Councillors Liddy and Bartoli. I would add that parents are hugely worried by the current situation, and I've had parents right across the coast contacting me, very, very anxious. It seems that the nearest school with places for their children is Burnside. For children at the coast, it's a huge place, the distance to have to travel, the disruption, the difficulties making friends for out of school activities and so forth are enormous, and parents are hugely worried about that situation. The lack of clarity is adding to their concerns. One of the items in the previous report about the children and young people's plan, one of the priorities and actions was to improve education information, advice and guidance from primary school to post-16 to ensure that there is an appropriate awareness, the range of routes available to young people. My concern is that clarity and advice has not been available now. Parents are hugely worried because of that disruption to their children's education. Clarity needs to be there. I think it's particularly important that there should be a borough-wide strategic education review, that the whole position can be looked at in the round. Parents can see potential routes are for their children. I hope, therefore, everyone will support this motion.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Chair. Speaking as Cabinet Member for Education, as well as a teacher and actually a teaching union rep, moving to the statutory consultation phase of the review of Monks Eaton High School has not been an easy decision to make. However, addressing the situation with Monks Eaton High School reinforces the fact that this Cabinet will make difficult decisions when needed. Education is vital for our children, but it has to be done in a financially and educationally sustainable way. It is for that reason that I cannot agree with this motion. Council will be aware that annual ambition for education and similar reports have been brought to Cabinet for over 10 years, and that the performance and finance reports to Cabinet received every 2 months consider schools' finances. Therefore, I think it is clear that we have been providing members and the public with honest and stark details of the challenges faced by some schools, especially Moseaton High School. The recent Cabinet report in September and the Ofsted decision in November, supplemented by the range of information put into the public domain, has provided parents, pupils, school leaders and other stakeholders with the facts and figures leading to the decision to consult on the closure of the school. Therefore, to say that there is a lack of clarity is simply not true. Our pre-publication consultation followed Department for Education guidance. We received over 900 responses to the consultation. I, together with the senior officers, including the Director of Children's Services and the Director of Resources, have met twice weekly throughout the pre-consultation to go through these responses. Unfortunately, this did not identify any further potential solutions that had not already been considered by our team of experts. The long and short of it is that the school is only around half full. Anyone who has read the comprehensive reports will know that school funding is largely driven by pupil numbers. That is the key factor in determining how the school, not the council, gets the funding to set their budget. Moseaton High School has a current deficit in excess of £5 million. Based on the school's forecasts, that will increase by over £600,000 every year. There is unfortunately no scenario where the school budget can come back into balance under current pupil forecasts. Even when future house building in the area is modelled into these forecasts, pupil numbers would still be insufficient. We are already working with the Department for Education. In fact, their financial experts have worked with the school and reached the same conclusion. Based on current pupil forecasts, they could not see a way to a balanced budget. The motion asks about a 3-tier system. Reflecting the views of the public previously, we remain committed to that system in this part of the borough, but that does not change the fact that the budget of this school is not balanced. Consulting on the future of Moseaton High School makes a 3-tier system harder to arrange, but there are no proposals to move away from that system. In terms of the borough-wide review, we are in continual discussions with the Department for Education. This is normal activity for a local authority. But what the motion doesn't cover is the need to include school leaders in these discussions. As our reports in recent years have set out, the levers that the authority has to mandate change are severely limited. We simply do not have the ability to tell schools what to do. We can advise and encourage, but we cannot mandate. We do not have the financial flexibilities that multi-academy trusts have. We cannot move money around in the way that some of our parents have suggested could help Moseaton High School. The motion asks to refer this to full council. This completely ignores the fact that the workings of the authority are governed by legislation. In particular, the Local Government Act 2000 makes it clear that this is a decision for Cabinet, and as such, regardless of the outcome of this debate, it would still be a decision for Cabinet to make. Of course, we have consulted and engaged with all members through briefing notes and the formal consultation process. Many of the ward councillors representing current and future pupils have engaged with families. So whilst Cabinet is the correct place to make the decisions, it is simply not true to suggest members were not consulted. Finally, the statement in the motion claiming that this decision to consult was a political one is beyond bizarre. No one in this chamber wants to close schools. I myself would not be sat here if there was a viable option which we were choosing to ignore. There simply isn't a viable option. As I pointed out earlier, the Tory group have been aware of Moseaton's issues for 10 years, but have said and done nothing. Again, more recently, during the pre-consultation, they haven't managed to produce a viable solution, yet they wait until the 11th hour and pretend to care by producing a motion with little substance and again, no solution. If that's not political, I really don't know what is. So whilst I can't support this motion, I can assure everyone that myself, Cabinet and officers will continue to work hard to make sure that the children of North Tyneside and Moseaton High School in particular are our #1 priority. This motion serves only to highlight that the group opposite are not fit to run this council, don't seem to understand simple financial issues, not to mention how the council constitutionally operates. Thank you, Chair.
Other member? Councillor Pond.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to come back on one point from Councillor Phillips' speech. He says that we've left until the 11th hour to discuss this. I want to clarify, this is the first opportunity since the decision was announced in September that council has met and council has an opportunity to discuss this issue. There's not the 11th hour. The nature of the council timetable has meant that this is the first opportunity for us to discuss it. in his speech, he didn't address the key points which have been raised in this debate. There's still the question of the proposed school in Killingworth, which is part of the local plan. There is still the question of the future of Monk Seaton Middle School if there's no high school for Monk Seaton Middle School to feed into. And there's the question of what happens to Whitley High School when inevitably it is oversubscribed as a result of this decision. This motion and this decision specifically wasn't political. It's not about politics. The speeches on this side of the chamber have specifically left out politics because it's about young people and their futures. And members opposite can laugh, but that's what this is about. It's about young people and their futures. And if you find that funny, that's frankly disgraceful. There is clear public support for this motion. And regardless of politics, we should all be standing with parents and students who have a huge amount of uncertainty ahead of them because of this decision. We should be supporting this motion, which would stop this decision going ahead until the key questions are answered. And we should all be voting to put young people first. And that's exactly what we'll be doing tonight, Chair.
Councillor Bones. Other members wish to speak? Yes. Oh. Carry on. Speak. Well, what?
Yeah, thanks very much for the start by paying tribute to the parents who campaigned quite diligently on the issue. Mr. Shaw, Samuel and myself have met many parents, surgeries, public meetings, and actually attending meetings of the project. A number of those parents are there tonight. Tonight, in the discussions that we've held with parents, in highly respected. I thank them all for that. And I do appreciate, really appreciate, that it is a difficult time. It continues to be a difficult time for parents and pupils alike. We should forget that. And certainly I don't underestimate the amount of anxiety, stress that any planned closure does cause, just like Phillips. I think in the event of closure, considerable efforts need to be made to mitigate the impact of any such decision. That needs to be conducted in partnership with parents and, more importantly, pupils. And that needs to involve all school leaders, council officers and parents working on a tripartite basis, but also in collaboration in terms of addressing the impact of any decision. I recognise national funding is at the root of a lot of this. We've had 14 years of austerity. Pupils and schools have been on the receiving end a lot of this. I think this side of the chamber would agree with that. I think we also need to recognise that there's a national issue, underfunding in schools. We're not the only local authority in the country that's faced with this difficult situation and dilemma. And across North Tyneside, there's a £9 million deficit on its school's budget. So that makes it really difficult. The deficit simply cannot come down if not other schools in North Tyneside could be very vulnerable and at risk of closure. And certainly on this side, safeguard. I think there's a point about the model and the support and system that we have. It cannot go without the comment. Schools, in effect, operate in a marketplace, sadly. A freestanding organisations, it's competition between schools. Parental choice doesn't help that because it adds to the complexity. There's little or no catchment compliance for the schools in North. And in many ways, that results in a free-for-all. So-called strong schools survive, and that's at the expense of others, as the money follows the pupil. So what I'm looking for tonight, and it's a plea, and I think Councillor Phillips has touched upon it, in the event of any decision on closure, we need targeted support, pupils and families, to help during the transition in order to minimise disruption, safeguard learning outcomes where possible. Fully effective transitional planning between council officers, parents, school leaders. This needs to be built on genuine collaboration. Transition plans which are based on individual and specific people needs, particularly those that have special education. I think the key point for me tonight, Chair, we need absolute clarity, educational pathways, pupils in the event of school closure. Certainly, Councillor Phillips would also allude to the fact that, without doubt, very, very difficult for many. Need to work together to secure effective solutions. It's paramount, absolutely paramount, that we endeavour to get the right decision for each and every child. Benefit. Thanks.
Very much. Normal.
Thank you, Chairman. I think no one would want to close the school, to be quite honest. But I just want to make a few things very, very simple, not lots of speeches that would get lost in, but a few simple things so you may understand. The school is half full. If parents who have parental choice, and it was the Tory government that give the parents the choice, if parents decide to send their school to another school, we can't have any say in that whatsoever. We can't say to the school, you can't do that. We can't say to Whitby High, oh, you can't take those children, because we have no control over those schools at all. Then once again, in the 80s, the Tory government decided to give all the money, take it out of local control, give all the money for education to schools. So if you come to me and say to me that we're closing the school, I have to tell you at the end of the day that we have worked year after year with this school to try and make the necessary cuts. They didn't do that. We even went to the colour codes area and said, would you come together and form a federation? They said no. We went to Whitley Bay and said, will you cut your numbers so we can keep Monks Eaton open? They said no. We also actually went to the FA College. Would you come in into? They said no. So if you think we haven't been at it for a long, long time trying to keep the school open, you are so certainly mistaken. And if you think we're taking joy in doing this, we are not.
Councillor Hannah Johnson.
Thank you. Just to add a couple of things myself as well. So like Councillor Phillips, I'm a secondary school teacher, and I think we've all sort of said nobody gets into politics to do something like closing a school, and it's a really, really tough decision for the council to make. But I think parents need to be reassured that they are absolutely. So there are a few of the sort of opposition members insinuating that there aren't spaces across the borough for the students from Monks Eaton. There are spaces at the schools across the borough for the students at Monks Eaton to go to. And whilst we can't enforce anything, we are working with the schools to make sure that this is done effectively and it's done well for the parents and the students. As Councillor Spowett has said as well, unfortunately, money follows kids when it comes to schools, and there's nothing that you can really do about the fact that Monks Eaton is heavily undersubscribed and therefore has one of the highest debts in the country. This isn't just a small amount of debt. You know, we got higher funding to help schools in difficulty than Birmingham and Manchester, which are obviously two major cities. So we need to make sure that we are actually doing the best thing for our students. And in this case, unfortunately, it does look like that's going to have to be to close one of the schools. But like I said, we can reassure parents that there are absolutely spaces for students across the borough. I would also add as well that Councillor Bones, you're sort of insinuating that this has just sort of happened. And as Mayor Redfern's just said, it hasn't just happened. If you had genuine concerns about this, you could have easily got in touch with any member of the cabinet or indeed Mayor Redfern herself about this. But instead, you've actually chosen to make it political yourself by bringing it to full council in this kind of arena. So I'd just add that too. Thank you.
Yeah, on a point of personal clarification, I was named in that speech. As I said in my speech, this is the first opportunity that council has had to discuss it. The decision was made following the last full council. It's not political to bring an issue to full council. In fact, that is literally our job. Our job is to sit in this chamber and discuss the most important issues of the day. And one of the most important issues of the day today is the closure of Monks Eaton High School. I'm not going to get into the politics of it. I'm not going to sink that low, Councillor Johnson, but it is absolutely our job to be talking about the closure of one of our biggest high schools.
I don't have anybody else who's indicated. Oh, sorry, councillor Mulcahy.
It's very interesting that this has been going on for some 10 years, back and forward, back and forward. Not once in those 10 years has the opposition asked for an extraordinary council meeting to deal with the issue. You've already done one tonight. Why haven't you done one in the past? Ask yourself that.
Councillor Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. I was hoping I wouldn't get involved in this because it is very, very difficult as a parent to actually have to face things like this. But certainly, I think what has been missing from this debate tonight, and certainly from one side of the chamber in particular, is that we are corporate parents, and I think we've actually should have all done the training. So while being a parent is a difficult job and you have to defend your kids as best you can, being a corporate parent and sitting here and have to look after every child under your care in the borough, I think, you know, that again is a very, very difficult task. And like I say, if you think it's easy to make decisions like this, it certainly isn't. I've been here, we've had a two-tier system in Wallsend, which went ahead and there was problems there. I've sat here when we had a school, private school, got into problems, and the council again took all the stick and had to try and bail that out. And now we're sitting here again tonight with a school which is in dire problems, and it's very, very difficult to deal with. But to sit there and to say that you don't care, none of the people who have spoken tonight on one side at least were here when those difficult decisions were made, and I haven't heard one of them talk about corporate parenting. And the people sitting in this room and the people who've got to make this decision are the corporate parents. And like I say, I know it's very, very difficult for us. It's very difficult for the parents and the teachers and the children that have got to go through this. And I think before we get too head up and start talking and apportioning blame, we should remember that it's about the children. It's about the parents, it's about the teaching staff. It's a lot more than just, oh, they're going to close the school, or they've made this decision. There's a lot more. Thank you.
As I have no further people signifying that they'd like to speak, can I ask Lily?
Thank you, Chair. I take exception to the comments from Councillor Phillips, the accusation that my speech was political. It was anything but political. All I did was to raise genuine parental concerns with no political perspective put in the speech whatsoever. The Mayor seems to blame everybody but the Cabinet and people sitting opposite. Councillor Johnson insinuates that says that I insinuated that there were no spaces in the borough. That again is not true, it's inaccurate. All I asked was, were there sufficient spaces locally to accommodate these displaced pupils? If not, where were the spaces? I didn't insinuate that they would have to go out of the borough, just ask for information as to where the spaces for secondary education were in the borough. Nobody on this side didn't say we didn't care. Again, that is a spurious claim. The one good thing to come from people on that side of the chamber is that there is a commitment to a three-tier system. By agreeing this motion, we'll send a message to parents that we are actually listening to their concerns and are prepared to discuss their concerns and look for ways out. And for people to say it's our problem at this side of the chamber is disingenuous. You've been in charge for 11 years and this problem has just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And you've done nothing to assuage that problem. To sit there and accuse people on this side to be the cause of the problem, you should just look in the mirror. Thank you.
And I now ask that we go to the vote.
Can members please vote now on the motion? All members have voted. I'll close the vote.
Okay, that's 42 votes against, 11 for, and therefore one abstention. Okay, can we now move on to motion 4, please, signed by councillor Bartoli? Are you moving the motion, councillor Bartoli?
Thank you, Chair. Start by thanking the Mayor,
Yes,
Deputy
start.
Mayor.
Okay, can everybody just settle down? So,
Chair, I just wanted to correct my vote because I was pressing and I tried to put my hand up to get help because my vote was, I was voting against.
okay. We'll do it again, I'm going to take that. But the chamber agree if we just said that, to correct the record and just change that vote. Okay, so your vote will now be. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, councillor Bartoli. You wish to
Thank you, Chair.
move your motion now?
Thank you, Chair. Again, like we saw earlier with those brave parents and students and supporters who took the time, I just want to thank the fishermen who've turned up today to support the motion. It's a cold evening. For those that aren't used to the chamber, it's not a very interesting or enlightening place to be, so I want to thank them for coming tonight. The motion today seeks to protect and preserve the vital fishing heritage of Cullercoats, a heritage that has stood as a cornerstone of our borough's identity for generations. Our fishing community is not just a relic of the past, but a living, breathing part of North Tyneside's economy. Culture and history. These are hard-working people who contribute much to our community, and they deserve nothing less than our full support. But as I sit here, I cannot help but feel deeply disappointed. It should not have fallen to councillors from Tynemouth and New York and Merton to bring this motion forward. This is a matter that directly affects Cullercoats and its residents, and is the duty of the councillors elected to represent that ward to lead on such an issue. Yet here we are. And why are we here? Because the Labour councillors for Cullercoats have chosen to abdicate their responsibilities. When residents and fishermen raised their concerns, what did these councillors do? Did they stand by their community? Did they advocate for the protection of this vital heritage? Instead, they hid behind officers and towed the party political line instead of standing up for the very people who elected them. I was appalled to see firsthand that the Cullercoats Labour councillors not only jointly refused to attend a public meeting at Cullercoats Community Centre, organised to discuss these critical issues, but went so far as to send an email to the Cullercoats Fishermen's Association, who are here this evening, stating, and I quote, "We would prefer if you did not attend our surgeries without notice to discuss issues of fishing and the harbour." This email, signed Willie, Andrew and Jane, Cullercoats and Whitley Bay South Labour councillors, is an insult to the hard-working fishermen of Cullercoats and to every resident who values our maritime heritage. This is their ward. These are their residents, yet they would prefer not to hear from them. This motion reflects the strong support of the local community demonstrated by a well-attended public meeting and a widely signed petition. These fishermen are not asking for the earth. They are asking for security, for the ability to continue their trade without unnecessary burdens, and for respect. And respect, sadly, is something they have not received from their elected Labour representatives. This is why this motion calls for the council to provide a clear political direction and consider the following: granting a longer licence for the fishermen's use of the boat park and yard, ensuring they have the stability they need to carry on their vital work, to permit on-site maintenance and repairs of their vessels, saving them from undue logistical and financial pressures, and to provide assurances that the seafront sustainable route will not impose traffic measures that would hinder their work. These are easy, affordable and reasonable measures that reflect the overwhelming support of the community and recognise the historical, cultural and economic importance of the fishing industry. Let's not allow political neglect to erode the heritage of Cullercoats. Let us show the fishermen and our residents that this council values their contribution and their legacy. It's time for this council to step up and protect our hard-working fishing community, ensure that fishing can thrive and grow here in North Tyneside. I urge all the members to support this motion and stand shoulder to shoulder with the fishing community, Cullercoats. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bartoli. Councillor McGinty, are you seconding?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm proud to second this motion and I'd like to express my full support for it. For me, this issue is personal. I spent 3 years working in a sea angling centre in Plymouth, where I saw firsthand the relentless hardships that fishermen endure every single day. These men and women work in conditions that most of us can only imagine, battling the elements, the freezing cold and the unforgiving seas. A few weeks ago, I had the privilege of meeting with Paul, one of the fishermen at Cullercoats Boat Park, and it brought all those memories rushing back. It was a stark reminder of the sheer efforts and determination it takes to keep this industry alive. Every aspect of their work is grueling, from hauling their fishing vessels into the harbour with tractors to braving the icy waters of the North Sea. Their tasks are relentless, and as the fish stocks decline close to shore, they are forced to fish further out to sea in search of a good catch. This doesn't just add to their physical and emotional toll, it also significantly increases maintenance and fuel costs. For these fishermen, there are no easy days. Their work is as exhausting as it is essential. The North Sea Advisory Council has highlighted the importance of safeguarding fishermen's livelihoods, not only for their benefit, but for the economic health of coastal communities like ours. These fishermen are not just individuals. They are part of the fabric of our history, our culture, and our local economy. They are the custodians of a proud heritage that we cannot afford to lose. Next time you are at the coast, enjoying fish and chips, or sitting in a restaurant eating seafood, I urge you to pause for just a moment. Think about what it took to get that food onto your plate. Think about the hours of back-breaking labour, the risks taken at sea, and the sacrifices made by those who fish for a living. This is why I'm standing here today in full support of this motion. It is not just about protecting livelihoods, it is about preserving our heritage, supporting our coastal economy, and standing in solidarity with a community that has been overlooked and neglected for far too long. The fishermen of Cullercoats deserve better. They deserve security, they deserve support, and they deserve respect. This motion will provide them with the stability and recognition they need to continue their invaluable work. I urge all members to join me supporting this motion. Thank you, and thank you for coming tonight.
Councillor Shaw.
Chair, we've got an amendment.
You have it printed.
You've already got it.
Okay, we'll just give it a couple of minutes to circulate it, then give members time to have a look.
Chair, can I recommend a 5-minute recess while it's being circulated, just so?
Yes, that's fine. 5 minutes. So, come back at 7:30. everyone, can we start, return to our seats, please? Okay, if we can, if everybody can return to their seats. Don't think, has everybody had the opportunity during the recess to read the amended motion? Okay. Okay, then, well,
Could I just say something? I apologise. I actually wrong button on that emotion among the schools, so I do apologise.
I'm going to correct that because I think there's been had a couple of issues with voting. So later on, I'll make a point about members correcting that. Okay, it's okay. We'll now go. We've had the amendment moved. Do I have a seconder for the amendment? Sorry. Well, I have proposed that. So, okay, then. Well, if you move the motion now.
Thank you.
The amendment.
Thank you, Chair. As I move this amendment, I recognise that I may be in a unique position tonight in that for the last 11 years, I have lived in a house that overlooks the Cullercoats Boat Park. Because of Cullercoats' history as a fishing village, I love having a view of the boat park. And let me be clear, I'd be the first to object to the park being closed or even worse, built upon. However, the number and type of boats kept in the park over the last 11 years has changed. There are fewer boats and the majority of them no longer go to sea. Some don't even look seaworthy. This year, I have only seen 2 of the boats in the park taken and launched from Cullercoats. Only one of these boats is registered with a commercial fishing licence and it spends more time in the boat park than it does at sea. There are still people who live in Cullercoats who fish for a living, but not from Cullercoats Harbour. The official register of boats with commercial fishing licences currently includes only 2 boats that have a connection with Cullercoats. One I have just mentioned is kept at Cullercoats, although with its home port registered as Blythe. The second, the Embrace, seems to be the only boat with a commercial licence that is registered with its home port as Cullercoats. I can't say I've ever seen the Embrace in the boat park, but it may be one of the boats that's kept wrapped in tarpaulin. The government website's guidance for getting a licence for a domestic fishing vessel of 10 metres or under states, and I quote, "Fishing anywhere by a British fishing boat is prohibited unless authorised by a licence. To protect fish stocks, the Marine Management Organisation does not issue new licences and there are a limited number in circulation. The only way you can get a licence is by transferring an existing one to your vessel. I therefore argue that a boat registered with a commercial licence that never or hardly ever goes to sea to fish wastes a licence that a person who wants to try to earn a living from fishing could use. That seems to me to be a greater hindrance to the future of fishing than the action currently being taken by this council to clean up the health and safety hazard that the boat park has become and to regularise the legal standing of boat owners' use of the park. Yes, Cullercoats has a proud fishing heritage, but sadly, fishing is no longer a significant part of the village's economy. And while there are many reasons for that, I feel confident to say none are the responsibility of this council. I hope for many years to continue to look out on Cullercoats Boat Park as I fill the kettle for my morning coffee. A boat park that contains more seagoing boats than weeds and discarded wheels. A boat park that is available for all boat owners who purchase a licence to use in peace. A boat park that is a significant part of Cullercoat's present and future, and not a hazardous, shabby, broken down legacy of the village's past. It's always sad to see industries and the culture that grew with them go. But Cullercoats remains a lovely place to live and visit. Its development into a popular destination for cold water swimming, kayaks, paddleboards, fabulous cafes and restaurants. That won't stop me saying I live in a fishing village. It won't stop me treasuring the history of Cullercoats, won't stop me getting involved in any way I can to make the history and heritage known to others. Therefore, I ask that members support this amendment in order to secure the boat park for Cullercoats now and in the future, and stop the petty party politics being played with our heritage.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Do you have a seconder for that?
Formally reserve the right.
Samuel second. Okay, is there any who wish to speak on the motion? On the amendment to the motion? Councillor Bartle.
Excuse me, this is written reply.
That would be you will have the right to speak because it's an amendment to your motion. So you will have the last option to speak. Is there anybody? Okay, then, so just Councillor Samuel.
Thank you. I just want to support the amendment because I think the fishermen, for the 25 years that I've lived in North Shields, I think that the fishermen deserve to be supported. Fishermen have provided heritage and they have, that should be kept forever for our children to enjoy. Every day I walk to the fish quays and we actually buy our fish from the fish quays and Cullercoats. And we definitely need to restore and recognize the economic significance because there are so many people who are actually having jobs because of the Cullercoats. And I think this amendment should be supported wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Chair, I think for the record, this council has got no intention to curtail what is left of the fishing industry. I personally would prefer to see it thrive, add to the area's economy, create employment, and contribute to the gross value add for Cullercoats. However, like many traditional industries, it's fallen into a state of decline and is a shadow of its former self. I have to comment on Councillor Bartoli's obsession with the fishing industry. I'm reluctant to talk about national policy, but he'll recall that his very own government issued a consultation paper last year, which would have decimated fishing industry in Holy Island. I think you need to be careful what you say. Thanks very much.
Okay. So Samuel.
Thank you, Chair. I would say there are two ways you can show your respect for the heritage and traditions of an area. You can rail against any suggestion of change, complain about what happened in the 1960s and 70s, be relentlessly negative, or you can look to the future. In my time in the Cullercoats wards, I've seen both approaches and I favour the latter. Fact of the matter is that Cullercoats is a proud fishing history, but in common with the fishing in general, that industry has been declined for many years. Cullercoats Fishing Association have consistently been evasive about asking how much fishing is actually going on, or how many of these vessels go out, and it would be extremely helpful to council officers to get that information. Clear observations of those who live nearby in answering the question is not very much. We should be asking why that is. I've had many complaints about the boatyard over the years, its appearance, the stuff dumped there, and a complaint from a licensed fisherman who's now retired that he wasn't even allowed to put his boat in there. I fully accept in the past the council hasn't addressed these issues, so we need to look to the future. What we do, we need a fully functioning boatyard, licensed, kept clean and functional by the council. They need to be more attentive than they have been. where new people coming into the fishing industry can get a discounted rate and can access the yard without encountering the wrath of the old guard. That is a way to respect the culture and heritage of a fully functioning boatyard used solely for the function it was intended, with no other secondary business going on. Oops. I have faith in our professional officers and the strategic property group to reach the right conclusions about maintenance of boats, which will enable the boatyard to prosper and to continue to be a living symbol of respect for the heritage of Cullercoats. I do not believe the current arrangements can continue. We cannot see the boatyard decline further. You take a short walk from the boatyard, there's a clear example of what you can do to both preserve the past, respecting your heritage, and look forward to the future, and that is the watch house. The watch house was falling into decay and neglect too, only accessed by a small elite. The trustees there faced bitter opposition. The same people are now fighting to keep the boatyard as it is. They stood firm against the negativity, and the watch house has been transformed and upgraded into a thriving community hub. The same could happen here. I am astounded by the request to abandon any traffic calming and control measures on the seafront. The number of complaints that we get from people who live there about the speeding traffic and the boy racers congregate in Beaconsfield to speed up and down the coast of the early years are overwhelming. Finally, I didn't expect our decision not to attend the recent public meeting we brought up tonight. So if you want a genuine open discussion, a meeting like this, you consult with the people you want to invite, you discuss the format, dates and everything else. I bow to no one in the number of surgeries, the Cullercoats councils and street visits and home visits we carry out. But there's a limit to what we are prepared to subject ourselves to. It appears the Cullercoats Fishing Association has merged itself with the Community Independents recently. And it was very clear that this meeting was looking like a political motivated show trial, where misinformation would be put forward and we'd have little opportunity to tell the truth of the matter. So it proved, as a letter from us explaining why we talk to anybody in the community at any time and hold meetings with any organisation on request, not a surgery, a public surgery, but actually pre-arranged meetings with agendas, which presented some of being the crime of the century. So no, we're not going to dance to the tune of the Community Independents and give any credence to misinformation, or be told what to do by a group which only recently sought to extract money from the Crescent Club for daring to cancel a Jamie Driscoll rally. But we are slowly getting around to the community and telling the truth to people. So I urge support for the amendment and look forward to support the future of fishing in the area, not the past.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Mzingwa said that this amendment protects the fishing community in Cullercoats, and she must be looking at a very different piece of paper from the one I am, because the amendment that Councillor Shaw has moved strips out every single request that the fishermen of Cullercoats had made with regards to these new licences. I think Councillor Spowett, who talked about fishing in Holy Island, he spent more time this evening and more time probably this year thinking about fishing in Holy Island than he has to bother engaging with the fishermen in Cullercoats. And Councillor Samuel thinks that it's the fishermen's fault that the council has effectively declared war on it, declared war on the fishing industry in Cullercoats, restricted licenses, and inevitably is trying to force out one of our key heritage assets. We won't be supporting this amendment. I think when one of our industries, like the fishing industry in Cullercoats, come to us with a very clear set of asks with regards to licenses, with regards to how to make this boatyard work for the industry, the least we could do is listen. This amendment sets aside any concerns that people who actually fish in Cullercoats have, sets it aside, says the Labour Party knows best, and that's something that we absolutely cannot support. We should be listening to the fishermen, and we should be trying our best to work with them to make sure their industry can continue to succeed.
So Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm disappointed that the motion has been so amended in this proposal, because I felt that it was genuinely deserving of support. With regard to the comments that have already been made, I do share Councillor Spowett's concern about the consultation with regard to fishing at Holy Island, and I fully endorse his concern about that. But with regard to Councillor Shaw's comments, it's unfortunate, I think, that she seems to be far more interested in fishing as a historical and heritage feature rather than a thriving industry which we should be encouraging. No reference has been made in any of the speeches to the importance of food security, is increasingly vital in this very difficult and dangerous world in which we find ourselves at the moment. Finally, I think that the point in the original motion about the seafront sustainable route was definitely worthy of support. and particularly important during the temporary arrangements for cycle lanes which were put in place during the pandemic. Council's changes caused huge problems for the Cullercoats fishermen, and it's important that they have the assurances that the original motion seeks.
Thank you very much. So no further members who wish to speak on this. Oh, sorry. Yep. Well, that's what I was going to say is there's nobody else signified. We'll now go summing up.
I just want to say, like,
Sorry, Councillor Singh was already spoken.
Sorry. Councillor Bartoli, to sum up, as nobody else signified.
Thank you, Chair. Shame that the Cullercoats councillors have waited till tonight to show some actual passion. It's a shame that passion wasn't shown in supporting the residents and the fishermen who they're meant to represent. They've said this evening that this amendment is in some way meant to help the fishermen, but if we just look at some of the parts they've taken out, they've removed a line which says protecting the fishermen's livelihoods and supporting their traditional way of life is essential to maintaining this heritage. Why would they want that section removed if they weren't trying to harm the fishermen's future? They've removed the role in ensuring that this heritage asset is protected. Why would they possibly want to remove a line like that if they didn't really want to harm these fishermen? They then go on, amazingly, to add 3 paragraphs which seem to pat themselves on the back for the amazing work they've done in supporting these fishermen. It certainly, that wasn't the impression that we got when we went to the public meeting as councillors, the one that they didn't attend, because it seems Councillor Samuel doesn't think that it's fair to be barracked by his residents. He only goes to places where they're friendly to him. And then they go on to take out all of the asks and all of the points that we worked with the fishing community and with the legal department to put together to just put a form of meaningless words together, which it's clear that the having talked to the group up there briefly, they can see through this, and certainly on this side of the chamber we can see through this. This means it's business as usual. We're going to continue to hammer this group. We're going to continue to make it impossible for them to work, and eventually we're going to get rid of them. Councillor Shaw can then have a few boats maybe left in there to look nice, but that seems like it's all that side of the chamber want. We won't be supporting this amendment. It's mealy-mouthed and it's not doing what it's meant to do. And I think the Cullercoats councillors should be ashamed of themselves.
Thank you, Councillor Bartoli. Can I now ask that we move to the vote on the amended?
I ask all members to vote, please. If all members have voted, close the vote.
Yeah, that's 45 for and 8 against, so the amended motion has been passed, now becomes a substantive motion. So is there anybody who wishes to speak on what is now the substantive motion? No.
I just want to say, Chairman, that we have a business section in the council, and I haven't yet had any representations from the fishermen Cullercoats to develop a business and grow. So the offer is still there. If you have plans for it to develop and grow, please come and talk to us.
Sorry, can I discuss on this? Is there any Councillor Bones?
So just to respond to the mayor's point, I think the thing that would most benefit the fish.
Speaking to the motion, like
I'm speaking to the I'm responding to the mayor's point in the debate on the motion. The mayor's just said that that we're happy to help the fishermen's business case. I think the thing that the council could do most to support the fishermen's business case is agree what was in the original motion with regards to the asks of the fishermen.
Bones, that motion has just been voted on and failed. So it's. Is there anybody else wishes to speak to the motion? Okay, appears Councillor Shaw, you therefore have the right to reply or to sum up. now substantive.
Thank you, Chair. There's a lot of talk about heritage, but heritage doesn't mean a thriving fishing industry in the village today. And I'm as sad as anybody that it isn't there. I wish it was. It was great. I loved seeing the boats in the fishing yard that went out and fished. But they don't. It doesn't happen now. It just doesn't happen. We've met with the fishermen many times. And you get up earlier in the morning. Aye, but your tractor wakes me up.
Thank you. We'll not have any discussions around this yet.
In reality, it doesn't happen. We've met with the fishermen many times as councillors, and the only reason we asked them not to come to our surgery was because they come to the surgery and spend the whole hour with us.
Thank you.
Spend the whole hour with us. And then other people don't have the point, and they come and they say the same things to us every time. They're not prepared to listen to the legal position as it is today, as we've been advised by the council's legal officer. And yeah, the whole situation is just really sad. But perhaps if the boat park gets tidied up and isn't such a health hazard, then other people would want to use it. And maybe we'll get something going in colour coats. Anyway, I just ask you to support the amended motion.
And I therefore open the vote, please.
Ask all members to vote now, please. All members have voted. I'll close the vote.
Here, that's 45 votes for, 8 votes against. Therefore, motion is now carried as amended. Thank you, everyone. We now move on to the regular business of the meeting as it was in the original agenda. So the next motion we'll be dealing with is motion 1. Okay, it's if we can now support Julie, if you can take your seat. Take it, all those members who wish to leave or have to leave because of declared interests have done so. Okay, so now move on to motion 1. This is been signed by Councillor John Johnson. I believe you're moving this motion.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Labour October budget delivered on the day before Halloween has given the country a raft of broken promises and tax hikes to keep everyone awake at night, whether that's our pensioners, farmers, private industry, small businesses, and sadly, even the charity and voluntary sector. Whilst the train drivers and union paymasters are sleeping comfortably at night, everyone else now seems to be asking, is this the change we really asked for? I can only imagine how devastated many of our colleagues must be across the council chamber after such a long wait for the return of the Labour government at what's been saved up by Mrs Reeves and her team. This budget is indeed the nightmare before Christmas. Across England, charities have warned of the life-changing consequences for 1 million vulnerable children and adults as a result of cuts to state-funded disability services driven by tax changes and wage rises announced by the Chancellor. Nurseries have also warned of higher fees to parents and possible closures because of the increases to national insurance contributions and the wages, which, according to the Early Years Alliance, will push the early years sector to the brink. Balancing improvements in the NHS on the back of our gap-filling charities is a Treasury move which is hard to understand, impossible for charities to sustain, and deeply unpopular. The third sector is already struggling with rising costs, reduced public giving and volunteer shortages leading to charity closures across the North East. In our own borough, only a few days ago, Support and Grow, based in Shiremore, who were nominated for an award by Voda and who offered much needed support with food, clothing and decreasing social isolation, closed their doors, citing a poor financial outlook for the coming financial year. A few days after the budget, myself and Councillor Bowen spoke with the operations manager of a leading charity that works in North Tyneside and across into Newcastle. She had sat down with her finance officer and together they had worked out that they would need to find an additional £72,000 from April 25 to sustain frontline services at their current level. This would equate to losing 3 full-time members of staff. Despite reassurances from the Treasury, the National Council for Voluntary Organisations has warned that the charity sector faces a staggering bill of an additional £1.4 billion because of the significant tax hikes in NI and the increase in the national living wage. We as a Conservative group recognise the importance of paying a fair wage and having good terms and conditions for staff, but this needs to be balanced with the reality of the increased financial pressures it puts onto the third sector, with the real risk of job losses and the likelihood of less services on the ground, supporting some of our most vulnerable communities. This motion is asking that the Council offer, it's not asking that the Council offers financial support to the sector. We're only asking for 2 simple things. The first one, for us to write to the Chancellor to express our concerns about the impact of the budget on charities in North Tyneside. And secondly, to ask that we work with Voda to identify any charities that may be at significant risk and to see what support can be given as they deal with the financial challenges ahead. We're lucky in this chamber. We have a lot of experienced and knowledgeable councillors on both sides of the chamber who work or have worked in the sector and who could assist with this task. I'm hoping we can all agree this motion tonight and show our support for the incredible work done by charities in the third sector as they grapple with the increased financial pressures presented by this budget. Thank you, Chair.
Johnson, do you have a seconder for that? Okay, do I have any members who wish to?
Yeah, can I move an amendment? I have circulated and I have already asked for it to be put on the table of the opposition members as well. Can we move straight moving it then?
Yes, has everybody had the opportunity to read the amendment? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I think the key parts of this amendment, on this side, we were absolutely delighted to see the living wage increase because that living wage increase will put money in the back pockets of working people. We will never apologise for that because that is what we elected the Labour government to do after years of Tory austerity, leaving the public with nearly £40 billion black hole. The original motion fails to present an accurate picture of pressures charity have faced, and many years now, the extent at which the effects of employers' national insurance contributions increases will be mitigated for them. In addition, the amendment highlights a lot of support North Tyneside Council provides to the charitable and voluntary sector. Whilst I would agree that pressure for charities increase, I would suggest that most of these pressures were present for a long time before the budget in October. The rising costs of charity does not start in July or indeed October 24. It's worth recalling that high inflation, which pushed up costs, was an issue for charities for most of the decade. For example, between September 22 and March 23, the UK experienced 7 months of double-digit inflation after Liz Truss crashed the economy. Since the end of the pandemic, the charity sector, until very recently, has struggled with national skilled labour shortage, making recruitment and salary costs higher. The appalling decline in level of quality of the public service over the last 14 years in areas such as health and social care has placed an increasing strain on the charity sector to try and meet gaps in such provision. Not only did the last government leave many public services shambolic and broken, they created a black hole in the public finances while doing so. This has meant the new government has made tough choices, and increasing employers' national insurance is one of them. However, the original motion does not mention that at the same time, the level of employment allowance has increased from 5,000 to 10,500, substantially mitigating the effect of national insurance contribution rises for the smallest charities. And I mean, many small charities in this borough won't pay any national insurance contribution at all. We've always supported charities across the borough, and as the amendment shows, through commission services like grants, North Tyneside Council spends about 3.3 million ensuring the community voluntary sector in North Tyneside is said to survive. We've got a great working relationship with Voda and lots of other voluntary organisations around. What this does do, though, Chair, and I think, as I said before, it does write to the Chancellor to ask them what support might be available and what support they can give to the community voluntary sector. We do recognise this might be an issue. As I've said before, while the Tories used to hide behind and never represent the residents of North Tyneside to their government on this side, we'll always do what's right for our residents, and where we feel we need to, we'll represent them to our government, Chair. I've tried to be as non-political as possible in this, but this is a very important issue, Chair, and I've moved the motion amendment, sorry.
Okay, do you have a seconder for that? Yeah, so Hannah Johnson.
Thank you. Seconded and reserved right.
Okay, is there anybody who wishes to speak on the amendment? Right, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Was kind of hoping not to come in on this, but after listening to Councillor Johnson's perspective, I think there is another very important perspective I might want to look at. Let's think about what's happened over the past 14 years. The biggest decrease in living standards since 1952. Well done, the Conservative Party. You have made people poorer. You have made everybody the cost. I mean, let's face it this way, the cost of living crisis. Liz Truss's disastrous mini budget that shot, mortgages up for millions of people across the country. And what does the Labour Party do? It gives 3.5 million people a pay rise. That's terrible, isn't it? We give 3.5 million people a pay rise under this budget. That should be celebrated. We're trying to fix the mess that you've made in the NHS, something we should be commended. You always seem to ignore the mess that you've left the government, the mess that you've left the economy in. The result of 14 years of austerity, the cost of living crisis. The government has put things in place to ensure that charities now don't pay up to £10,500. I think it is right that we still write to the Chancellor. I have no problem with writing that, but there's some important information that you always seem to leave out. So I will be voting in favour of this amendment, and I would hope the members opposite do as well, but I suspect they may not.
Councillor Wallace.
Chairman, on the copy of the amendment which I have, it's clear what the council is asking the elected mayor to do. In the middle of the second page, it deletes expressing concerns about the combined impact of increasing the wage. Get further down, it says write to the Chancellor to express concerns about the impact. What is actually being asked?
Sorry, Chair. So when it starts to repeat itself while asking the elected mayor, that part's not in our amendments, or that bit shouldn't be in at all, because that was just a repeated part. The end bit, it ends at work with Voda, and then it goes to North Tyneside Council, ask the elected mayor. That wasn't in our amendment, Chair. That's just a pasting error on the behalf of it.
So just for clarity,
so that's where it ends on the screen now. Is where it ends. The bit below that on the paper that repeats the original bits, not in the amendment, Chair.
Is that here now? Is there any further member wishes to speak on the amendment? Some of their vote. Councillor Johnson, you have the right to reply.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I find it really interesting tonight. We've heard so much from the other side about not focusing on national issues, but you're very happy to kick the ball back across our way as soon as it doesn't suit yourselves, which is quite fascinating. I'm disappointed in terms of the amendment that the statement by the Chief Executive of the National Council of Voluntary Organisations has been removed, plus the fact that charities have told us directly that this will impact their frontline services. I also find it really interesting in terms of the figure of £40 billion, which has been mentioned. It seems to be interchangeable, a bit like Rachel Reeves's CV at the moment, with some of the facts on there. We're very disappointed tonight. We feel like this motion has been politicised, and we will not be supporting the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and we now move to the vote, please, on the amendment.
Please can you vote now? All members have voted. I'll close the vote.
That's 35 for, 7 against. The amendment is therefore carried substantially. Does anybody want to speak to the substantive motion? So Carl Johnson. Oh, is there anybody else other than Carl? No. Okay. What was it?
Chair, we've heard a lot about shame tonight from the other side when shame hasn't been there, but it's absolutely shameful. The Conservative group and the independent member have just voted against celebrating giving the poorest people in this borough a pay rise. I move the vote, Chair.
Okay, can we move forward then? This is on the new substantive motion. I think.
All members, please vote now.
It's voted. It's 41 in. Oh, sorry, 42. Somebody's a bit slow. 42. Thank you very much, Evan. So that's now carried out. Okay, everyone. Can I just point out that it's been pointed out to me that 2 members voted similar to where Councillor Limbaugh did before, voted the wrong way in a previous vote, and we'll need to correct, would like to correct those the minutes to votes. So it's just wrong way. So that will be corrected in the minutes. Is there any other members who feel they've voted the wrong way? Had a lot of votes today, so or where they didn't intend to. Okay. Can I just remind all members to be particularly careful? If you're voting in favour of something, it's a positive. If you're voting against, it's a negative. Thanks very much. We now move on to, it's actually motion 2 on the agenda, and moving this one. Councillor Bones, are you moving this one?
Chair, we feel that the amendment to this motion is unacceptable. It completely negates the motion originally intended. The £2 bus cap retention is the name of the motion, and to undermine that with an amendment is unacceptable. So we're therefore withdrawing this motion.
Is there a seconder for that? Just on to withdraw it? Here comes Julie. Can council now agree that that motion has been withdrawn?
Sorry, Chair, can't hear.
Sorry, the mover of the motion has asked that the motion be withdrawn from tonight's agenda, and has had that seconded, and if now we have to agree as a council that that motion can be withdrawn from the agenda. So as long as all members agree, then it's withdrawn from the agenda. That's item 2. Motion 2. Thank you. Okay, we're now moving on to motion 3. And I believe Councillor McAlpine is going to be moving this motion. Can you move the motion now?
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this brief. The motion sets out some small steps to bring payments from the Tyne and Wear Metro up to modern standards, and just to pick up on some commitments that have been made previously by local transport chiefs. Contactless and app-based payments are part of everyday life for the vast majority of people, but particularly younger people and commuters. Despite Metro payment infrastructure being somewhat modernised in the last decade, residents and visitors who haven't signed up for a POP card still have the painful process of queuing at the ticket machine. We also have the strange and fairly unique situation where around half of our residents are excluded from smartphone-based ticketing due to a lack of support for iPhones. As well as convenience, the POP system brings significant discounts to travellers, so it's important that the barrier to using it is as low as it can be. Now, clearly, this extends well beyond North Tyneside, but I think it's right for us as a local authority to make representations like this to the combined authority on behalf of our residents. All the things we're asking for are things that local transport chiefs agree need to happen. There's just been no update on them for the best part of 2 years. I realise this is not as hard-hitting as some of the other topics on the floor tonight, but it could help bring about a small life improvement. So I hope everyone can support it on that basis, and thank you for giving me the time.
Thank you for that. Mr. McAlpine, do you have a seconder for that? Okay, Councillor Beardmore, and the Speaker reserve the right. Okay, are there any members wishing to speak? Councillor Carl Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We'll be supporting this motion. It's an issue that I've been taking up for a long time. When I was chair of the Tyne and Wear subcommittee, it's an issue I pushed on for quite a long time. The local democracy report, I would have probably heard me talk about this many, many times over the years. It's a constant issue that it is an issue that at Apple's End as opposed to Nexus End. I believe that is now solved and they are working on it, so we should get some positive impact on this soon. We don't agree with some of the language in the motion, but because we agree with the outcomes of it, we won't support this, Chair. I can recommend if there's an outbreak of agreement, we move to the vote, please.
Okay, let's agree. Move to the vote. Or you'll second the like vote. No, you don't suppose. Well, we've gone to the vote anyway. So, okay, that's 51 votes in favour. Thank you very much for that. We now move to motion number 6, and I'm going to ask who's going to be opposing this motion. Thanks. I'd like to move the motion now.
Yes, thank you. Across our borough, shoplifting has spiralled out of control. Just last year, Northumbria police received over 15,000 reports of shoplifting incidents, yet only 1,000 of those cases resulted in arrests. Our communities are feeling more unsafe and our local businesses are struggling. I know several local shops that are on the brink of closing because of the losses they face due to shoplifting. It presents a real danger to both workers and customers. Too often we hear about shop owners trying to protect their livelihoods, and putting themselves at risk to confront the thieves. Across the country, people are attributing to the rise in shoplifting to the early release of prisoners under Labour. And Kim McGuinness, the previous Labour Police and Crime Commissioner, said, "We could not arrest our way out of the crime." Clearly, under Labour, crime seems to be without consequence. Northumbria Police have taken steps by introducing the Shop Watch scheme, enabling them to quickly contact officers in the case of an emergency. This is a good start, but it doesn't go far enough. Many convenience stores and garages, particularly those located in our estates and away from the main town centres, are left out of this scheme. These businesses are just as susceptible, if not more, to the impact of shoplifting. We are asking for the PCC to attend a full council meeting as a matter of urgency to provide an update on the state of shoplifting in our borough, and we're asking for an extension of the Shop Watch scheme to cover businesses outside the town centres. Shoplifting cannot be tolerated, and if we want to protect our small businesses, we need to act now. I hope this motion gets support from across the chamber tonight.
Very much for that. Do you have a seconder for that?
Second and reserve the right, Chair.
Councillor.
I'd like to propose an amendment, Chair.
Yes, it's been circulated. I take it all members have had the opportunity to read the amendment. So if you wish to start out, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's important to put the motion into context. Firstly, I wouldn't describe shoplifting in North Tyneside as being out of control. It's a typical Conservative group way of presenting misinformation, and it's not grounded in reality. Whilst recorded shoplifting rates have risen significantly across the country, the current rate of recorded offences in North Tyneside is lower than the national rates and lower than the rates for the Northumbria Force area. Northumbria Force area. However, I agree rates are still too high. Any level would be too high, and I fully acknowledge the devastating impact shoplifting can have on shopkeepers and businesses. But to understand the changes and increases in relation to shoplifting offences and the policing of this crime, including arrest rates, we need to understand in relation to the national policy context and the many years of inaction from the former Conservative government. Since the former Conservative government introduced the rulemaking theft of goods under £200, a summary-only offence, it brought about a so-called shoplifters charter. There were only 431 penalty notices issued in the previous year compared to 19,419 in the year before the Conservative government changed the law, a huge drop of 98%, and it's a similar story regarding conviction rates. I welcome the decision by the Labour government to scrap the rule introduced by the Conservatives and through the Police and Crime Bill to also give further powers to police and invest in more frontline police to help tackle this issue. In spite of the inaction and the restrictive rules imposed by the former Conservative government, I want to reassure our residents, our shopkeepers and businesses that North Tyneside Council has been proactively working with Northumbria Police and businesses to change the approach to tackling shoplifting here in our borough. For example, Sir Alan Campbell, MP for Tynemouth, Northumbria Police and North Tyneside Council have met to discuss the impact of shoplifting in the borough. And many of my councillor colleagues, Labour councillor colleagues, including members from Wallsend, North Shields, Tynemouth and Cullercoats wards, have also met with Northumbria Police and the Police and Crime Commissioner to discuss these issues. The new Chief Constable of Northumbria Police has personally overseen an operational change to tackle this issue in partnership with colleagues in North Tyneside's Community Protection Team. A range of other actions have been implemented to help drive down crime rates, support the retail sector, encourage reporting of offences, and where possible ensure appropriate punishment of offenders. The Shop Watch scheme is one example of this partnership work. It is a network of local businesses that come together to tackle the risks associated with business crime. Currently, the scheme operates in Wallsend and North Shields town centres. Shop Watch scheme is recognised for having good results, and neighbourhood officers have said they would welcome the scheme to expand in other areas. Other police initiatives, including Paradise Patrols and Operation Shield, have seen increased police presence across North Tyneside during the day, at weekends and at night to deter criminals and offer reassurance to our residents and businesses. This also includes neighbourhood officers and local authority officers who work closely with shops and retailers. We will continue our close partnership working with the Police and Crime Commissioner and Northumbria Police, shopkeepers, businesses and wider partners to support the retail sector, drive down shoplifting rates and prosecute offenders. I'm confident this will be more achievable, supported by a proactive Labour government. The Police and Crime Commissioner has also already been invited to attend a future meeting of full council with the Chief Constable and Northumbria Police Force. Thank you.
So, do you have a second for that? Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second the amendment. I am pleased to second this amendment, as the amendment accurately outlines the causes of the current epidemic in retail crime. This is because the last Conservative government, through their policies and their unwillingness to tackle retail crime, created the environment in which retail crime could thrive. It wasn't just the cuts to the police force, but it was through specific policies that gave the impression that retail crime was a low priority and as such acceptable. These policies include the Antisocial and Behaviour Crime and Policing Act 2014, incidentally brought in the very first year I worked in retail, which gave the impression that any act of shoplifting under £200 would not be investigated. This act kick-started a decade of misery for the retail sector, with the BBC Retail Crime Survey revealing that there were over 16.7 million incidents in 2023 alone. Now, at this stage in a speech by myself, I would be very tempted to go through a very long list of statistical data, but I'm not going to do that because there's only one that I really wish to highlight. And that is, according to the British Retail Consortium, there was a 50% increase in levels of retail violence and abuse to nearly 1,300 incidents per day, many of these linked to staff confronting shoplifters. Now, that's the reality behind the statistics. It's the real experience of the retail sector, of the shop workers, of the people who work in many of our retail sites, who have to deal with violence on a daily basis, not just shoplifting, but the violence that gets linked to that. It's not surprising that the BRC report also said that a number of retailers thought that the response from the police was inadequate. Now, in our area, the police force, councillors, MPs have done everything they can to try and deal with retail crime. I'm more than happy to request that we write to the chief and ask him to look into expanding the scheme. I'm more than happy to ask the PCC to attend the council to report to this council. However, I have to say that the police, the PCC and all agencies have been held back by a Conservative government who has handicapped them and have proved that they are as ineffective at running the economy as they are as protecting our citizens from crime. That is why I believe this amendment is right, because it accurately reflects the root cause of retail crime. And I would ask that all members vote in favour of it. Thank you. So, Newman, I have Councillor Ian Grayson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, speaking in favour of the amendment and agreeing with Councillor Clark, who said we need to put this in context. Just draw people's attention to paragraph 3 of the amendment. With nearly 90, it's normally when you see a figure of 98%, it doesn't really explain what the drop was, but it's nearly 19,000 less penalty notices were issued in a year, and over 42,000, well, probably nearer 43,000 of convictions in the same period. And that is putting it into context, as Councillor Clark said. And that's why we in Wallsend have been still getting contact from shop owners and the public raising concerns. And I think we now understand why they've been getting in touch with us when we see those drops in notices and convictions. We in Wallsend have been meeting with the police inspector on a regular 8-weekly basis, and we have a two-way dialogue and we're very, very supportive of what the police have been doing. But we have been asking for higher profile, and linked to the comment and linked to obviously what it says in paragraph 4, the Labour government are going to scrap the Tory Conservative government rule and obviously bring new measures into the police and crime bill. There has been a more responsive, more receptive response to us, and we are seeing a higher profile even before the bill becomes law. And just this week in Wallsend, Chair, there's been an antisocial behaviour awareness week where, and on Wednesday, just yesterday, there was high police presence in Wallsend and also officers from the council's community safety department. So we are working with other agencies, with the police, and taking this matter very seriously. We also, in Wallsend Council, we've met with Mary Glindon MP a couple of weeks ago, well before this motion was even thought of, and Mary is very supportive of us and wanting to work with the local councillors in the area, and she has written to the PCC inviting the PCC to come down to Wallsend to meet with shopkeepers and the public on Wallsend High Street to further support them and deal with issues. So fully supporting the amendment. It does need to be in context with where we are because of the previous Conservative government's inappropriate changes that clearly haven't worked, clearly causing a lot of concern with the public and with shopkeepers, and I'm delighted that Labour government are changing them and scrapping them. Actually, and the councillors and the police and the council community safety staff are working closely, particularly in the Wallsend area. I'm sure they are in other areas as well, but I'm not familiar with what's going on, but certainly in Wallsend. And we get regular 8 weekly figures from the police. In the last 8 weeks, because of the higher profile, because of the new emphasis, because of the new government telling the police this is what we're going to be emphasizing, there's been a 15% drop in recorded shoplifting in the Wallsend area on this similar time previous years. There's also been prolific offenders have also been arrested and remanded in Her Majesty's prisons, given decisions made by the courts. So we're welcoming that. We'll welcome the police action. We'll welcome the results, and we'll welcome the fact that things are actually happening and perpetrators are actually being dealt with. As Councillor Clark said, no figures are acceptable. We won't be complacent. There is still a lot to do. I welcome this amendment and welcome hearing further good news from the Labour government, the Labour Council, the Community Service, Community Service team and the police about further tackling this very important issue that is a concern for members of the public and shopkeepers alike.
Councillor Grace, Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. I think we have had to turn this into a good motion. The opportunity for the opposition to put in a good motion from the start. Issues around theft in shops, around shoplifting in the borough is an issue, and there needs to be a conversation around that. But as was rightly said by the move of the amendment, this needs to be taken in the context of the situation in which we find ourselves, and not fantastical Tory handout motions to go along with some of the handout jokes they've tried to present this evening. Rather aptly, on the 10th of November, the General Secretary of the Shop Workers Union, USDOR, Paddy Lurtz, said of the government's plans to combat shoplifting and other crime in retail spaces that after 14 years of successive Tory governments not delivering the change we need on retail crime, we are pleased that the new Labour government announced a crime and policing bill in the King's Speech. This new legislation will deliver a much needed protection of shop workers' law and end the indefensible £200 threshold for prosecuting shoplifters, which has effectively become an open invitation to retail criminals, along with town centre banning orders for repeat offenders. The Chancellor announced in the budget funding to tackle organised criminals responsible for the increase in shoplifting. The government has promised more uniformed officers in shopping areas. It is our hope that these new measures will give shop workers the respect they deserve. This work is already going on, pretending like it's either an issue that is only in this borough or that it's only happened since July is absolutely ridiculous. The Tories removed from the landmark 2010 Equality Act section 40, which placed a requirement on employers to undertake action to protect workers who had been subjected to third-party harassment on more than 2 occasions. Removing that has also taken, in a lot of cases, the responsibility away from the employer for direct action on this. It doesn't just lie with the police, it's ensuring that employers, especially in some of the bigger establishments, are protecting workers, which isn't happening. Again, like I said, there could have been a good motion put here from the start, rather than trying to place the blame in places it shouldn't have been placed, rather than at their own doorstep after 14 years, where they've consistently let down shop workers and let down the shopping public. Thank you, Chair.
So great. So Lily.
Thank you, Chair. Just one of the paragraph 4, I think, in the amendment, where it says the rate of recorded shoplifting offences in North Tyneside is 9.53 per 1,000 population, which is lower than the rate for the Northumbria Police Force area and the rate for England. This is somewhat misleading in a sense that the vast majority of shoplifting cases are not recorded. An example being my local Sainsbury's Extra, just along the road from where I live. Speaking regularly to the manager, she accepts shoplifting will occur there on an almost daily basis. It's pointless, she says, it's pointless reporting all of the offences. They have now removed numerous lines from the shelves in that shop. In addition, she's very concerned for the welfare of her staff and customers if shoplifters are confronted. And on a personal note, my wife brought 2 of our grandchildren home in a state of distress last weekend, having witnessed an example of shoplifting in the store. I really think we need to extend this scheme to cover out-of-town stores like that's at the Sainsbury's Extra at the Broadway Beach Road roundabout. If we have any chance of reining in shoplifting, which I will, where we put it is, if not wholly out of control in certain areas, because it's happening. If this store at Sainsbury's is a microcosm of what's happening across the borough, the amount of offences occurring on a daily basis, it's frightening. So action needs to be taken, and I hope that what is said at the end will actually occur, where we will get some information from the Police and Crime Commissioner and from the Chief Constable. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bournes.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to hear that most members opposite agree that shoplifting is out of control in North Tyneside, and I say most because there was one notable exception in the speeches. Everyone knows that shoplifting is out of control. In fact, Councillor Newman agreed that it was epidemic in North Tyneside. But Councillor Clark, who is, after all, the cabinet member responsible for this, said that calling out of control was misinformation. I think if she thinks that it's misinformation, she should have a chat with her colleagues behind her who clearly have a closer grasp on the issue than she does. And she should also have a chat with the shopkeepers who are really struggling to keep their businesses afloat as a result of this persistent problem. But as usual from the members opposite, it's head in the sand. Shoplifting isn't a problem, but if it is, it definitely isn't our fault, and it must be the Tories' fault, even though that they run the council and have done for 11 years. They have had the role of Police and Crime Commissioner since it was established, and they are now in charge of the government as well. I think it's really time that they stood up, took responsibility for being in charge, and started to work towards solutions rather than blaming anyone but themselves. The issue is that shopkeepers have stopped reporting the issue, as Councillor Lilly said, because the police just don't care, they don't respond. And that's why we need the PCC to attend council to explain why the problem is at the way it is and why the police aren't treating these issues seriously in the borough. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bournes. Councillor Frankloff.
Thank you, Chair. I don't wish to detract from the very serious statements that have been made by all parties about shoplifting, but I'm concerned about the picking of pockets that's been going on tonight, or it's been attempted. Because at the last meeting of this council, I gently chided Councillor Bones and his party for allowing this group here to prepare, present, defend and implement a budget when there had been no such efforts made by them. And then they subsequently spend the rest of the year suggesting that we spend more money on their interesting but usually unpriced projects, which obviously appeal to the public. Some of them appeal to me, but they're always extra to our budget. I congratulate them on having listened to me, because tonight they've came forward with 6 proposals, 6 motions, the first of which asks for extra money from the government, the second one asks for money from the combined authority, the third asks for money from the combined authority and Nexus,
Just allowing Councillor
the
Lott to
fifth one,
press on.
Councillor
I think
Bartoli,
it's your duty to
Councillor
interrupt.
Bartoli, he's making the point, he's making it, it's entitled to make.
But none of it relates to the motion.
But it does belong.
He's talking about the budget.
Isn't open for discussion. No, members have had their say on all the motions all the way through. Let members say. But Councillor, yes. well,
Chair, it's
Councillor
your
Lott has-
duty if he's not talking about the motion.
where would you like me to start from again, Chair?
Well, you can start back where you started, because I think I've lost over most of the talking
Okay.
over the top of your Councillor Lott. Sorry, carry on.
Well, part of the debate has been about the conduct of the debate, and I'm just pointing out, having supported everything that's been said on this side with regards to the amendment to the motion, that we've been witnessing some attempted pickpocketing tonight, in that of the 6 motions presented to us by the Conservative group, the first one asks the government for extra money. The second one dips into the pocket of the combined authority. The third one dips into the pockets of the combined authority and Nexus. The 6th one asks for effectively extra resources. It has resource implications for the police. That's this one, so I'm addressing this motion. And with regards to motion 5, there was no mention whatsoever of where we were going to find the 5.6 million that is the current debt related to Monkseaton High School. So I think we need to be aware of pickpocketers.
So don't have anybody else who's signified. Oh, sorry.
A few weeks ago, myself and Councillor Jay Bartoli met up with the local police on this issue, because our local, some of the shops in my area are being targeted. The local Tesco, a girl was subjected to a knife attack and had to hide in toilets. And when we asked the question, about the figures, they said people just aren't reporting, we can't get out to everybody. And also, which was important, was they said that because of Labour's early prison release scheme, that they're just going on a spree of thieving because there's no consequence for them. There's no, they know they're not going to get put in prison because there's no room in prisons for them. So I think there's so many small shops and garages that need this help.
Thanks very much for that. Okay, I don't think it's. Councillor Barton.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I thought the interesting thing. Sorry. Yeah, it's interesting that when we change or amend or add anything to a motion, we're being political, and the party opposite does it exactly the same. Puts a whole page of red attacking the Tories. It's putting things into context. I think it's clear that the way they treat this side of the chamber is much the way they treat and view their residents. It's one rule for them and one rule for everybody else. What I would say is they've been very passionate tonight about the issues that we've raised. Once again, not one of them has brought a motion to council, and we know why that is, because you're all too afraid to stand up to the leadership. What would be nice if one of you, well, you're all emailing us privately telling us what it's like behind the scenes, but none of you actually stand up and sit in council.
So Bartoli,
What I would say is would be nice if all this passion was directed at bringing some motions rather than letting us do all the hard work on this side of the chamber.
Okay, calm down, everyone. Councillor Bartoli. Councillor John Johnson.
I think Councillor Bartoli stole me thunder there. I mean, I've been a councillor for almost 18 months now. And honestly, it's exhausting listening to you lot. It really is. All I hear constantly is how bad the Tory government is. Get on, take some responsibility and work for your residents.
Thank you to Councillor Johnson.
Watch this space, Councillor Lott. There'll be more than 7 soon.
Hold on.
There's 8 actually.
Councillor Carl Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. The pennies came dangerously close to dropping for the Conservative group over there tonight. They talk about things not being reported, yet they can't realise it's because the police will not do anything about it because of the legislation their government introduced. It's very, the speeches they've started making, I thought a couple of them might have got it by mid-speech, but no, they then go away again, Chair. It's a remarkable listening to the opposition tonight, who seem to have no idea how councils run. You know, this chamber is not, the budget gets set in this chamber. Last year, you just didn't put a budget in. Yeah, before that, you didn't critique in. Last time you actually put a full budget in, you got told by the Section 151 officer, actually, no, it doesn't balance. If you really want to change things in this borough, put a budget in May, because Councillor Bones is up to about £40 million of unfunded spending promises so far. So if you want to actually do that, put a budget in February when this budget meeting comes to a close, then you can get your policy agreed in the borough. You talk about how we don't listen to our residents. We've got 51 out of the 60 seats all out elections were last year. We've won election after election because we listen to our residents consistently. We deliver for our residents, and that's why we're still here. And there's 8 of you set over there, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. 5, please. 5, please. Right, Councillor Drummond.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, it's quite interesting to hear the lot on the other side coming up with all this. At the end of the day, they're just taking the moral high, trying to take the moral high ground now because there's an election on the way. I mean, it's the first time I've seen Councillor Bones in the street.
Chair, what's the relevance of that?
Yeah. I mean,
be nice if you made an effort for your resident.
Sorry?
Hold on, everybody. Can we just stick to the items on the agenda?
He's away again talking over people.
I know.
It's not being addressed.
Well, hold on, everybody. Just hang on.
You know, some of us don't have to come and vent it off in here because some of us actually get on and do it outside of here. We're doing.
Councillor, do you want to just carry on with the point you were going to make rather than get involved in the argument?
But that was the point I was making.
Oh,
Chair.
right.
At the end of the day, we actually get on with work outside of this chamber. We don't have to bring everything into this chamber. We actually go and work with officers. You know, everything they do is political. Every single thing. So we've had 14 years of Tory cuts. They're blaming us. Now, come on.
Thank you very much for that anyway. Right, is there anybody signify this? Okay. Okay, everyone, I don't. Oh, right. I haven't got anybody else who's signified. So the right to reply now goes to Councillor Jaybar too. Thank you.
Councillor Clark has again demonstrated she lives on another planet by removing the sentence that shop theft is out of control. Then all her colleagues tell us how bad it is. It's a shame that they politicise the issue. It's time they stood up and realised that they're in charge of both the council, PCC and government. Stop blaming other people. Take responsibility and stand with residents and shop owners who are forced to deal with this problem day in and day out. It's not a petty crime. It's a growing epidemic across North Tyneside. Please can you explain how 15,000 reports of shoplifting is not out of control? Our local businesses are struggling. Owners in my own ward telling me that the theft is eating into their slim margins. Some are even reconsidering whether they can afford to stay open. These aren't just numbers or statistics. These are livelihoods. We can't afford compliancy. We need to be acting for our residents and small businesses.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Bartoli. And we now move to the vote, please, on the amendment.
Can all members vote now, please? If all members have voted, I'll close the vote.
Okay, that's 43 for, 7 against, 1 abstention. So the amended motion is now carried. Can we just therefore move straight? Sorry, Councillor Carl Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. This substantive motion now includes everything the Tories wanted from this. It invites the Police and Crime Commissioner to council, and it asks actually the right person to ask to increase police funding. The PCC is not the right person when it's operational. We've corrected the motion because you don't know how things run in this borough. I would urge the Conservatives to back this motion because it does every single thing they asked for in their original motion. It just sets the context of what the reality of a situation is. So I'd urge the Conservatives to back this, Chair, unless they don't want shop watch extended across the borough, or they don't want the PCC to come to this the next council meeting. They should be backing this substantive motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Clark, you now have a right to reply on. So it's like Councillor Bones.
We will be back in the motion, and not because it has a long prelude of excuses for the party opposite, but because it does what we had initially asked for. Because every motion we bring to this council chamber asks for things that will improve things for the lives of residents across North Tyneside. We don't do excuses. We don't do it's not our fault. We ask for things that will improve residents' lives. So yes, we don't agree with the preamble, but we do agree with the requests, and we'll be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Bones, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I think as stated earlier, I repeat again, I do live on planet real world in reality, not la la land like the people sitting opposite here tonight. Councillor Lilly, I won't repeat too much of what's been said because it was referred to by Councillor Johnson, but yes, the statistics are likely to be misleading. People don't report all offences because the police's hands have been tied by the Tory government policy, which restricted what action could be taken to prosecute and arrest perpetrators of shoplifting. Councillor Bones, you are making sensationalist statements. To state that shoplifting is out of control in North Tyneside, I think is both irresponsible and it is inaccurate. You've seen the figures, it's not grounded in reality. That doesn't seem to bother you because you make these statements all of the time, of course. To dispute that that statement is sensationalist is not to dismiss that shoplifting is a vitally important issue and that this administration recognises that. It's also not to dismiss the fact that shoplifting has a devastating impact on our shopkeepers and businesses. That's not what I'm saying. I'm challenging you on presenting inaccurate information yet again in this chamber, but it's nothing unusual, Councillor Bones. We'll continue to challenge you. Councillor McGuinty and Councillor Bartoli referred to blaming early release prisoners for the increase in shoplifting and organised crime. My goodness, they haven't been out 5 minutes and they're doing all of this. It's absolutely ludicrous. And again, making accusations and statements that are not grounded in reality is completely misleading and actually dangerous. The Police and Crime Commissioner has already been invited to attend full council, so I have no objection whatsoever in supporting the asks of the original motion and requesting extension of the shop watch scheme. Again, we're already in agreement that that scheme is working really well and it would be great to have it extended. It'll come down to a matter of resources, but let's make the request. So let's move to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, move to the vote now then.
Look, all members, please vote now. All members have voted. I'll close the vote.
Okay, that's unanimous 51, so that motion now passes as amended. Okay, can I just remind all members, I think we've done very well to get through 6 motions reasonably well, but it was getting a little bit exciting on the last one there. So, but this bit's my bit, so it's chair's announcements. So don't expect any barracking or harassment. I have a number of announcements to update you all on tonight. Firstly, I was delighted to welcome Her Royal Highness Princess Royal to North Tyneside. She had come to visit the Butler Trust in North Tyneside and North Tyneside Youth Justice System to recognise the great work they are doing, which has won national recognition. And also Ovington Boats, who are one of a very small number of manufacturers globally who make the sailing boats used in the Olympics and other international events. Both of these organisations are great representatives for North Tyneside. This Tuesday, I also had the privilege of hosting the Lord Lieutenant as she presented the British Empire Medal to 2 North Tyneside residents. Miss Hannah Cranes was awarded for her work in the NHS, and Miss Lillian Gallagher received her award for her charity fundraising. These 2 ladies are great examples of our residents in North Tyneside, and we should be very proud of them. Since our last meeting, I have represented the council on commemorative events for Remembrance Day. I attended the Field of Remembrance at Gateshead, one of only 6 such centres in the country. And I also represented the council at the Cenotaph in Wallsend and in Whitley Bay. And remembered all those who gave so much for all of us. I also attended the Armistice event on November the 11th at Kilnworth. And it was great to see so many residents attending all of those events. I would also like to take the opportunity tonight to remind members of my charity event for Acorns. If any members has not registered yet and they would like to attend or bring a friend or relative, please email either myself or Ashley Willis as soon as possible. I'm aware we've had a busy agenda, so I will leave it there. However, as you know, I always like to end the announcements on a bit of a good point, and today is no exception. I was delighted to have been invited to join the local charity, Sarah's Star, at a party to celebrate their 1st anniversary. The charity works with those who have incurable illnesses, but it has a very upbeat ethos. That was clearly evident when Debbie and I arrived. It was very informal and a true party event, which is where the funny side started to come. As in almost everyone there was in fancy dress of some sort. It was great. But for the next 3 hours, Debbie and I had to explain we had not come as anyone in particular. We really were the chair and concert of North Tyneside. So thanks very much for that. Thanks very much for everybody. Madam Mayor, do you have?
Yes, I just would like to say that I'm very proud of my, to be quite honest, they work extremely hard. When I came onto this council, the Tories had 32 seats. We now have 51 and you have 8. So when you make comments about us not caring about our residents and not working on behalf of our residents, you actually want to consider what you actually say. But I look forward to the budget because we've got a lot of financial pressures, and I look forward to the budget because the last Conservative to put a budget in was Councillor Waddles. Councillor Waddles was the last Tory that put a budget in. We've never had a one in since
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, we now move on to questions by members of the council. We have 4 questions. First from Councillor Lilly. Would you like to read it? Or
Thank you, Chair. Following the Chancellor's budget, can the Mayor explain what she thinks the definition of a working person is?
So Carl Johnson, I believe you answered.
People who work.
I noticed from that short and rather facetious answer that no mention was made of the self-employed. So if the self-employed are not workers, what are they?
Read the Employment Rights Act 1996, section 230, and you'll see what working people are, Councillor Lilly.
Very easy to be too clever by halves.
Chair, you don't get seconds.
That's the 2 questions answered. Thank you very much.
Chair, can the Deputy Mayor answer what the Mayor?
Like the Mayor can sort of nominate anybody from on something.
Even on what she thinks?
It's on, she can nominate anybody she wishes to answer any specific question. Question 2 from Councillor Bones.
Thank you, Chair. Can the Mayor provide an update on the waiting list for council and social housing in North Tyneside and how that number has changed over the past 12 years?
So, John Harrison, I believe you answered this question.
Thank you, Chair. I think that we are all aware of the national shortage of social housing. This is well publicised
and the crisis affects all parts of the UK, and North Tyneside is no exception. To help combat that crisis, North Tyneside has started delivering an affordable homes programme to deliver 5,000 new homes and has started to tackle a number of derelict properties in the borough. Also, we have included within our local plan that at least 25% of new homes built is affordable. We are working with registered providers to build homes with affordable rents. In spite of our achievements across the borough, demands for affordable homes outstrips our supply. It should be highlighted that the number on the housing register only tells a partial picture. Consideration must also be given to a number of other factors. For instance, 2010, we have seen our council stock reduced from 15,613 to just over 14,000 in 2024. We have also seen an increase in our North Tyneside population by 10,000. With this said, further consideration must be given that on average, the home finder team used to receive around 20 applications per day over the 4 or 5 years ago. Today, the service typically receives an average of 50 applications per day, demonstrating an overall increase in the demand and the need to build more social homes for rent. The figures are as at the 21st of the 11th. We currently have 4,222 people on the register. In 2015, it's difficult to get back to 12 years. It was 2015, it was 4,652, which is broadly in line with the previous years as we continue to rehouse people over the applications over the year. Since April, we have rehoused 500 applicants.
Councillor Bones, you have supplement.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I note the increase in demand that the Cabinet member referred to. So I want to ask, does the Mayor agree with me that Labour's plans to relax eligibility rules for council and social housing, which will prioritise migrants for council houses, will lead to longer waiting times and less choice for our most vulnerable North Tyneside residents?
No.
Okay, question 3 by Councillor Alpine.
Can you take it as read, please, Chair?
And Councillor Hannah Johnson, I believe you'll answer on this question.
Thank you, Chair. We have worked with the Park Run team from the moment the Seafront Sustainable Works commenced, and they understand that a project of this magnitude will cause some unavoidable disruption. We are keeping their team up to date with the scheme's progress and will always work with them to ensure Park Run is supported and that the Junior Park Run on a Sunday is a great success as well. Phase 2 of the Seafront Sustainable Route commenced in October this year and is part of the Mayor's manifesto commitment to increase opportunities for safe walking, running and cycling, including the provision of a segregated cycleway at the coast. I myself have asked about working with Park Run, about working with Park Run on this new scheme, and we are absolutely committed to making sure it continues to be as successful and popular as it currently is. Thank you.
Johnson, Councillor McDowell, you have supplement.
In the event that the closure goes on past January, are you prepared to work with the organisers to look at alternative locations?
As I've said, we will always work with Park Run to make sure it continues to be as successful as it can.
Very much. On to question 4. I think this is Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Can the Cabinet member outline how much money, including officer time, has been wasted on the now scrapped Preston Road North Cycle Scheme?
So Hannah Johnson, I believe you answer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. As I'm sure you'll appreciate, managing a travel network of 900 kilometres of road and 1,700 kilometres of pavement, plus the wagonways and various cycle paths, is a complex activity. As part of the design development process, schemes go through a number of iterations, and inevitably some do not come to fruition if the design process highlights issues around either functionality or quality. This specific scheme is part of a £12.5 million programme of active travel projects that continue to provide a safe network of active travel routes across the borough. This will benefit our residents and businesses. The overall scheme had a value of 1.3 million and is funded from the North East Combined Authority Transforming Cities Fund. I don't agree any money was wasted in developing the project, and listening to residents' views on the proposed scheme is always important. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor. Can the Cabinet member confirm if the Tynemouth Road scheme will also be shelved?
That's not relevant to the question.
Okay,
That was relevant. It was specifically the two schemes linked together.
well. But, yeah, well, that was the response that the Cabinet member gave to the question. Okay, everyone. I believe that brings us to the end of tonight's business, except to remind members that this is the last council meetings for this municipal year, and it's the next major event's going to be Christmas. So we're going to just take opportunity of wishing you all a very, very happy Christmas and see you all in the new year.